Hey, hey, hey. All right,
Hey,
man. How you feeling?
good. I'm good. I got my
Okay,
coffee.
let's go. Look, hey, y'all. Welcome to the Teachers for Good Trouble Virtual Summit. Man, we are about to have a very, very good evening of just powerful, critical conversation. So, if y'all didn't know, you better get ready because it's about to go down.
You winner! Tiki Talk!
All right. Uh, so we got to give it up to the queens first. Queen, do you mind just introducing yourself to the people, and then we're gonna get this thing rocking?
Yes. Hey, everybody. My name is Deidre Fogarty. I am the founder of Black Girls Teach. I'm a veteran educator based in the DC area. Just excited to be here and be a part of this movement. So I hope you all are ready to get into some good trouble.
Absolutely.
Correct!
My name is Alfred Shivy Brooks. I am one of the founders of Teachers for Good Trouble, an educator in the Atlanta area. And man, I am just so excited to be here to join with my good friend Miss Deidre Fogarty. To
My name
really man, come on, did we get it correct? Did we put respect on the name?
it sounded like you said Deidre. Okay. It sounded like you
Oh,
said
look, we not gonna play with the queen name, okay? All right, so Deidre. Um, uh, today, like this is going to be like a lot of fun. Shout out to our Teachers for Good Trouble team, who have come together and really been putting in the work
yeah.
for the past weeks, really making this thing go. So big ups to all of the queens, all of the kings who have come together to do this lifting. This I hope will move the needle on a lot of conversations and help educators really feel that we have a say in what is to happen and what schooling looks like, education looks like, as we don't want to just be subject to policies made about us,
Yeah.
without us, but we are here to be at the table and to be heard. So, without any delay, I want to bring in our brother Rakim to share a little bit about why today is so significant and why it is so special. So, without any delay, what up, King?
Hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Good to be here. Good to be here. Well, today is actually a great day. It's John Lewis' birthday, right? And of a namesake. And as you know, Lewis was known for his lifelong work helping register Black Americans to vote. However, the thing about it is that when John Lewis came, he believed in an advocate for social justice, and he believed people could be the change that we wanted to see. And I think one of his most famous speeches that he said was in 1963, March on Washington. He said, "Those who have said, be patient and wait, we have long said that we cannot be patient. We don't want our freedom gradually. We want it. We want freedom now. We are tired, right? Teachers are tired. We are tired of being silenced. We are tired of seeing our students have to take standardized testing over and over and again as if it measures their humanity, right? And I think what John Lewis would say today, he would say to us to continue getting into this good trouble, right? He would say good trouble is sweeping the nation. Let's continue to stay in the streets of every city. He would earnestly push us to continue to fight. So in honor of John Lewis, who is a staunch advocate for social justice, we know that education is the social justice and the civil rights movement of our time. And that's why we're here for Teachers for Good Trouble, right? We are here to make way on that promise, right? So one of our missions, because of the great John Lewis, we are educators focused on reforming learning environments to build safe, nurturing, and justice-driven academic communities by advocating for legislation, policies, and resources that center the well-being of students, teachers, and learning communities. And I know John Lewis, happy birthday. And John Lewis is with us in the ancestral realm, and it's his spirit that moves us through. And I know that John Lewis is saying job well done and continue to get in good trouble. So thank you, and I look forward to this amazing virtual summit.
Okay. Thank you, Rakim. With that said, I would like for us, before we get started, to just take a moment, to have a moment of silence for all of the educators, all of the students, all of the family members of educators that we have lost during this pandemic, and who are a lot of the reason as to why we are doing the work that we are doing. So, can we please just take this brief moment of silence now? All right, thank you. I want to kick it over to my lovely co-host, Miss Deidre. To we're gonna dramatize the DRA on it. Okay, we're gonna make sure we make that clear. Yes,
every syllable correct. Thank you.
All right. Yes. Could you please take it away and introduce our lovely poet who is going to be tapping in and sharing with us?
Yeah. I'm so excited. I wanted to introduce Anaya Taylor, a high school student and a poet, to the stage. Anaya was born and raised in Baltimore, where salt, pepper, ketchup is one word. I need to hear you say that. And not only a condiment, but as an open mic. Anaya Taylor is a lover of poems, passion, and people. She was Baltimore's Youth Poet Ambassador in 2019 and a finalist for Marylander of the Year. She's currently a senior in high school in Baltimore, and her work is in social justice and activism, and it grows as she does. So welcome, Anaya Taylor. Welcome, Anaya. Nice to have you.
Hi.
Yes, there you go. Hi.
So thank you for having me. So I'll say it for you. It's salt, pepper, ketchup. That's
thank you.
So yeah, thank you for having me here.
All right, thank you, Anaya. We're excited to hear your poetry.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone at home, all the educators, everybody. I miss open mics a lot. I miss the physical oomph of poetry. I miss the hugs it gives you. So I'm gonna try to bring it back a little bit virtually. So I know I won't be able to hear you guys, but I know you guys will feel it in your spirit. So when you like a line, just snap to yourself. Say some Take she and Jesus, combine it to Jesus. Like, just really feel the poem if you feel the poem. So yeah, I'm gonna just get into it for you guys. How can school be a safe haven if it is also a war zone? Principal be general, classmates be soldiers, education be America, and we be dying men, sacrificing peace for pens, safe space for essays. How can I add integers when I'm risking subtracting my grandmother from the family equation every time I walk into the building? And they don't care. They just want to multiply dollar signs while dividing our lives. We be dying soldiers, mistaking good grades for good days. How can we bear honor when we can't keep the armor that saves us from things that harm us? Classroom be circus. Students be the act, expected to perform well on tests and treat us with diplomas after we learn of family members being tested positive for COVID and treated with vaccines, and we are all data points. Expect to score high while we are worried about our brothers being the target for a hollow point on the corner. You want us to sit in class and learn while the still point to the corner and look for X coordinates. Do you see our dilemma? Is our message delivered? If we gave you our eyes, if you walked in our shoes, would you understand the path that we take is paved with grades and praises that don't save us but swayed us to stay? And if we gave you our mouths, what would you say? Thank you guys. I am Anaya Taylor, poet, person, chicken eater. Love you guys.
Yes. Woo! That was wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Anaya. Anaya, are you on like social media? Can people follow you on social media?
am.
Okay.
Follow me on Instagram at _Anaya Taylor, like how it's spelled right there.
Okay.
But no apostrophe, of course. And on Twitter at Poetic Nonsense 2. And yeah, that's it. My work is
Yes,
done.
you did an amazing job, Anaya. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Woo, that was good. I can.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Hold on. We got to use the proper terminology. Jesus. Jesus.
Yes.
Yo, Anaya, thank you so much for sharing your light with us. That was absolutely amazing. Oh my goodness. Like, I can't wait to grab that clip and just share it with folks on the gram, because you really just like took us home, man, right there. Like, just speaking about students and the anxiety that many of us had, educators as well, returning into homes with grandparents and seniors and some of the more vulnerable family members that we have, and what that could mean potentially just by us returning into buildings to do school there.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing out and just all the energy and effort that I know it took for you to create that piece. You are an absolute gem. Thank you.
Thank you.
The show. We're gonna be tapping in. Go ahead. Man, Jesus, DJ.
Yes.
Lord.
Yes. Shout out to Baltimore.
All right, so,
I saw some Baltimoreans in the comments. So shout out to you all and Anaya. I actually started in Baltimore, so I have a special place in my heart for Baltimore.
Okay, for sure. Listen, you are about to kick off the very first panel and moderate that with our good friend Daniel Patterson. But before we do that, I just want to ask and remind all of our family, our Teachers for Good Trouble community that is watching right now, to go onto our website, teachersforgoodtrouble.org, and sign the petition. Okay, we have a petition that is ongoing to end standardized testing during this pandemic and for the foreseeable future, as we understand that there are a myriad of reasons as to why standardized testing is not going to be the most helpful method and could be actually harmful towards us getting to where our students deserve to be, where schools deserve to be, and the like. So if you guys look in the comments right now, I believe a couple of our Teachers for Good Trouble family are actually dropping the link for you guys right now. So please click on that, go to our website, sign the petition, and share this petition, please. Did you got anything you want to say before we move on into your panel?
No, I mean, I'm really excited for this panel because I think, mental health is such a huge thing, and we often are not talking about what that's going to look like for us as educators, especially right now. So I'm excited to hear from different experts in this area and really start to just have some dialogue, much needed dialogue about this topic. So I'm ready. 100%.
All right. With that said, man, let me get ready to get out of your way. So that you can get this thing rocking with these beautiful individuals that you are going to be bringing on to the show. There goes my guy. Look, it's very interesting because, we kind of been living in this pandemic world. So a lot of us have been living like that comfort, dress life. We don't get to see each other in collars or, the like. I don't think I've ever seen Daniel in a collared button down shirt yet. And here he is, just
here I am,
funny and dapper over there.
Yeah.
What's up?
For sure. Well, let me get out of the way so that you guys can take it over and go ahead and introduce the panel.
All right. And Daniel, can you introduce yourself really quickly before we get started?
Absolutely. My name is Daniel Patterson. I am the director of a therapeutic high school in West LA. I was a high school assistant principal and an English teacher for 14 years before that.
Yes, welcome. So we're super excited to have you, and I'm so excited to be facilitating this panel with you. So I think we're going to go ahead and start to bring on our panelists.
Sure.
So our first panelist is, okay, I see somebody. Oh, y'all popping up. All right.
All right.
Come on, I see you. All right, Doctor, can you pronounce your name? Dr. Myvet, is that how you say it? All
Correct.
right. Thank you. So Dr. Myvet is a licensed marriage and family therapist and a clinical director for the Juvenile Residential Treatment Facility. Welcome, Dr. Myvet. I see Debbie Rogers. All right. Debbie is a high school social worker at Innovation Academy Charter School in Tyngsboro, Massachusetts, and leads her own private practice. Welcome, Debbie. And I see Dr. Tremaine Walker. Welcome. Dr. Walker is a life coach, co-founder of TSW Solution, and provides consulting and coaching services for numerous nonprofit and for-profit organizations. Welcome, Dr. Tremaine Walker. All right, is that it? I think we're good to go. How are you guys doing?
Good. Good.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Great. Let's get started with our first question that we have for you all. So, all right. So we are really going to talk today about mental health professionals and just like what's going on in terms of teachers and schools and mental health. So our first question is, how would you define the trauma that our students are experiencing right now at this moment? And we can start with maybe Debbie. You want to start us off?
Sure. I was looking through some texts today, and I found this definition that said what happens to a person when there is either too much too soon, too much for too long, or not enough for too long. And I felt like that was a really kind of like spot on way to describe the trauma that I think our students and staff are experiencing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And I would, just to piggyback off of that, I would agree with what you're saying. But to give the Webster's dictionary or the textbook dictionary is just trauma is a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. And currently right now we're going through unprecedented times. Most of us have not lived through a pandemic. So, many weren't aware of how to deal with the psychological and the mental stressors and trauma that's currently going on right now.
Yeah, I would have to agree. I think for me, trauma is defined as an emotional and physical response to a dangerous situation. So the fact that we're living, like Dr. Myvet said, in unprecedented times, parents don't know what to do, so therefore kids don't know what to do. So we're trying to all keep it together and figure out how to move forward. But when your kids ask you a question and you really don't have the answer to it, you have to be honest with them, and therefore now they don't feel as secure about things going on in society that they would normally feel.
Right. And so when we think about the trauma that our students experience, like when they were attending school versus now, many of them are, at home, virtual. What do you think are some of the differences in terms of like the trauma that they're experiencing from then to now?
I would say at least while at school, they have peers, they have their teachers, they have school counselors to depend on. Now, while at home, they're dealing with and really having to rely on their parents, which is something they probably did before. But as Dr. Walker said, the parents are going through this traumatic experience the same time as the students. So it's kind of hard when you're going through something to be able to provide information that you're probably looking, researching and trying to figure out and how to deal with on your own. So I would say, on a daily basis, like you said, kids do go through trauma, but it's more of a complex trauma at this point because it's recurring, it's never ending, it's every day, it's something different and something new. So it's going to take a lot of resources in order for people to really deal and understand with the traumatic experience that the kids are going through right now.
Right. Absolutely. And as you say that, I teach younger students, so they're still not even understanding what's happening. Like they just know that they stopped going to school and they're not sure why they see me on the computer now versus in person. And so it's just such, like, for those younger ones, it's hard for them to grapple with and understand like what is happening. Why am I wearing a mask? Things like that are just so new to them.
Agreed.
I
And
wanted
like
to ask.
Dr. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Daniel.
Oh, I was just wondering, from my perspective as, as a school leader, obviously student health, student mental health is of the utmost importance. But one of the aspects I think that I'm most concerned of right now is teacher mental health and teacher wellness, with teaching conditions being so poor already. And as we look into this like hero to zero phenomena that happened from March until now with the way that teachers have been portrayed, I'm wondering what sort of trauma you think teachers are experiencing and how we could face into those traumas, because they're a little bit different.
Well, I think for teachers, there's a lot of uncertainty and mistrust about returning to campus. We just had this whole conversation about if teachers decided to take the vaccination, if they are essential workers, right? That's crazy, right? You'll
Right.
send your kids to school, but you don't think the teachers are important enough to make sure that they're safe, right? It's really important because our teachers are the ones literally tending to our kids all day long. Their emotional needs, their spiritual needs, their academic needs. And for me, I think teachers deserve the utmost respect when it comes to being frontline workers, right? They need to be honored more because they literally set the tone for our kids every day in the classroom. And sometimes set the tone for how they come home at night, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I agree with Dr. Walker. I think in this time I have gained, not that I did not have before, but I have gained so much respect for teachers and what they do. Like you said, Dr. Walker, they are the eyes and ears of us for almost 90%. Being a parent, I didn't realize how much is put upon teachers, right? So now working from home, I'm cooking 3 meals a day. I didn't have to do that before. So now, and just to go back to the point of the experience of the teachers, is they're suffering with anxiety, depression. I think I read an article that said now 28% of teachers are considering quitting the job that they love to do so much because of this pandemic, right? So, and let's not even to talk about the work-life balance, whereas you used to leave your home to go to work. Now you have, if teachers have their own children, they're dealing with the kids that are at home themselves and then having to exert the energy to provide that safe, point of safety for students. So it's taking a major toll on teachers.
Absolutely. And I think we have our fifth panelist, Tarshi, is on. We're talking about teacher mental health in this pandemic. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about how we can flip that awareness that our teachers need to support into tangible action to give them the mental support that they need in this season.
Absolutely. Within my practice, I see many teachers, and I think that the hardest part is that we just weren't ready for this type of situation. You weren't ready to be home and teaching on a screen. And also on the other side of the screen, you have kids who have behavioral issues, who have issues at home. And you have to deal with that type of behavior behind the screen and also with your own stuff. So there comes the secondary trauma piece, the secondary trauma where you care about these kids on the screen and you want to be able to help them and reach out to all of them, but it's impossible. It's impossible to do it behind the screen because you don't have the supports from the schools, the system itself. So I think that within my work with teachers and my work with the school systems, I'm always talking about, let's get these teachers help. Let's get them help. Let's get the support. Let's talk about self-care. Let's talk about how do you kind of go about these behaviors with these kids. Let's give them some training on how to deal with these behaviors. So yes. It's a huge matter. Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I add something? Because I just wanted to say, for me as a teacher, it's very difficult to be able to not be able to support my students in the way that I need to be able to support them. There are sometimes students that it's important for us to see them every single day. And, that routine is really important. And it's not there anymore. And it's hard as a teacher because, when you're making decisions about going back in the building, you have to it's really a life or death decision. And for me, I have a lot of anxiety about that. So I can only imagine other educators, like the anxiety that they're experiencing when they are being forced to go back into the building or already back in the building.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a lot. And I appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts on that. So what would you say are the most effective supports that we can put in place to be able to like handle the mental health needs of our students, but as well as our teachers? What would be some of those supports that you all would recommend? And we can start with, let's say, students first.
I think for both parties, I think it's the school district providing appropriate resources for students and teachers to get some mental health services, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real here. Like some schools and school districts allocated and allow some school counselors in, but one or two school counselors can't see 3,000 students. That's just not at a high level. So as our society is changing and our expectations for education are changing and more expectations are placed on the teachers, because let's be real, you guys are going to have to catch a lot of students up and manage a lot of very, let's say, interesting behaviors, right? So for you guys have to have the support of being able to talk it out, talk it through, get a bird's eye view. And if you just want to sit there and, talk about HBO Max, then you can do that, right? Whatever you need that time and space for, it's really, really important that we give the appropriate importance to mental health, especially for teachers and students.
Yes. I've seen so much programming go towards parents and students, but again, as Dr. Walker said, the teachers are the essential aspect of this program that needs to happen. There needs to be some type of training. I've seen mental health trainings dealing with coping skills, teaching teachers how to recognize symptoms of trauma, symptoms of stress, depression, and anxiety is going to be extremely key in the students as well as themselves, because let's be clear. If you can't pour from an empty cup, so if the teachers don't have it, they can't give it to the students. So there are going to be a major key of this program or training that needs to happen before students go back to school,
right,
into the building.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I feel like this can't be a one and done sort of professional development. And from a fiscal perspective, I hear a lot of excuses at high levels of, fiscal constraints, but that goes back to the testing, when states are literally spending billions of dollars to tell us something that we already know, especially in this season, is that the students are behind. And they're not behind so much as they're surviving a pandemic. So I'm curious, if you could wave a wand and implement some sort of programming at a school, what would you do? Knowing the collective trauma that we've experienced, that our students are experiencing. Anybody?
I'll go for it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Walker. Okay. I feel like I could come up with so many different things, but I think for students in particular, I think because I'm in the school, right? So I am like this, kind of one school counselor in a high school. And there's just not enough of me to be able to support all the students, right? I can only support so many. And so I think, if there was unlimited funding to be able to either like add in counselors, certainly, but I think it goes beyond so much more than that. And I think it is, many people have already kind of mentioned this, but really being able to kind of teach students like what to look for, right? So much of trauma is stored in the body, and so many kids and so many adults don't know what to look for. They don't know like what that feels like. And so I think having programming that's embedded where kids are learning how to identify those things and then learning the skills like, okay, I feel this in my body. Here's how I can do some like regulation. And I think that teachers need that, right? And so I think for teachers, there should be, I know in my school when one of our brave educators asked about, okay, well, what about mental health for teachers? Like what's available? And they just kind of refer you to the EAP, and you're like, call this number and hope for the best, right? And so I think having a more specific resource that's going to really be able to kind of take care of our educators who are on the front lines and holding, all of the students and their work there, and then also like living their lives, and they have their own families and their own loved ones and their own lives that need to be taken care of as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I think I definitely second that as well. I think the support needs to be an intense support, because just because we do open up, we do go back to classes, doesn't mean the crisis is over. It's not over. I think that it's hard to, you can't grieve until, you can't really go through the process until it's done, right? So I think that intensive support needs to be in. If we don't have the counselors in school, the therapists in school, then we need to figure out, how do we get that service there? How do we get the resource there? Is it connecting with a community resource, a clinic, or a community place that we can have therapists on the outside go into the schools? Is it providing the groups for both the youth and the staff and the teachers? And also the skills around, not everybody knows how to really work with these kids who have been traumatized in a way, in the sense that giving the skills, the trauma approach is important for the teachers to have. They don't have it. I mean, some of them really don't have it. It's not their fault. This is not what they're trained for. This is what the therapists are trained for. So how do we then go in and kind of teach that, and teach them about self-care as well? I mean, the secondary trauma is huge. I see it over and over and over again. I can't stop talking about it. The secondary trauma is huge. These teachers are going through so much right now with their own stuff. We're all going through it together. So how do we then form a support system for the teachers?
Yes, yes. And you brought up so many great points. I just want to say one little quick thing. I think Daniel had said it too. It has to be continuous. You know, I've been somewhere where it's like, we'll have one PD on trauma-informed instruction, and then one time we had a therapist come in, and it's just very scattered. And so what happens is that it doesn't feel genuine, doesn't feel authentic, and teachers are really not learning when it's just a one-time session. Right. So as you're saying that, it's just like, we have to prioritize consistent professional development and trauma-informed instruction, but as well as meeting the wellness needs of our students and teachers. And so did anybody else want to add in any other additional supports that you would recommend for students or teachers before we move on to our next question? All right. So what do you think that our school leaders should be prioritizing as many are going back into the building? What do you feel like they should be prioritizing when it comes to improving the capacity of the schools to be able to meet the needs of our students as well as our teachers?
So first, health and safety protocols, right? I don't think anybody wants to go to work or to school feeling like they're being put in danger. So I think a really good health and safety protocol. The second thing is maybe just readjusting the kids and the teachers to actually being back in the classroom rather than focus on testing and grades, and right? Because if we look at even the NCAA, right, the college eligibility board, right, they're giving athletes another year of eligibility because they're saying this year is lost. Well, it's the same thing, right, with our students, and not to give up. But let's be real here. If you have a student at home who lives in a toxic environment, you think they care about reading page 48 of reading comprehension? Absolutely not. Right? So we have to get our teachers and students in a safe environment and just reacclimate to school, right? Teach the kids, no, you have to sit down and raise your hand to get, or whatever the case is, because I'm looking at it like we got to start all over. They've been out of school for months, and kids, you know, they change. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
yep. There's during this pandemic, there's kids that transition to major grades, let's say from 6th to 7th grade, where you go from elementary to junior high to high school. This is a huge transition for the kids, and they missed out on that opportunity. So I'm agreeing with Dr. Trey in regards to, not to say that this year has been a wash, but I really wonder about the retention of the kids of what they're learning. Just looking at my own child and trying to help him navigate, okay, now at 1:15, you're supposed to be in this next class. And so they're missing those key transitions being impacted by this pandemic. I think another thing that would need to be implemented again is just really that strong structure of, like Dr. Trey said, that reacclimation of coming back into school for teachers and kids. There has to be a strong point on mental health. It's going to be important. One thing that we didn't talk about in regards to trauma is just the lack of concentration. that you have when you go through a traumatic experience.
Right.
And that's for kids and teachers, right? We're asking teachers to be 100% on task and on point all the time, again, when they're going through their own mental health stressors. So we just really have to hone in and key to, there has to be some structure in place to help everyone reacclimate back into coming back to school.
Absolutely. And Debbie, you are currently a social worker, right? So
Yes.
like in terms of social workers, guidance counselors, people that are working in that supportive area, what do you feel like you all would need, like, in order to be like best supported as students re-enter into the building? What supports would you guys need?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm in a school right now where we're hybrid, so I am going into the building 4 days out of the week, and so most teachers are at this point, and so we're kind of already having to, learn things as we go. And I think, I think, it's a hard question to answer. Like, I couldn't say like, oh, here's the specific thing, because I think it is so big. I mean, I think certainly just like patience with the process. And I think, like the same thing that teachers need, right? I mean, we all need to have some sort of way of taking care of ourselves and each other. And right, if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not going to be good at my job. I'm not going to be good at holding space for those students. So I think, like really checking in with each other, right? Like it's a community, like, and making sure that, hey, like, do you have support? Are you like talking to anybody about this? Are you, taking care of yourself outside of work? If you see someone that you think maybe is like pushing a lot, right? I think I work in a school and a lot of our educators give and give and give, and they don't often remember to give to themselves. And I think that is sort of the most important thing. And I would only add in terms of what school leaders can do. I think like one of the biggest things they think they need to be doing more of is listening. And I think creating space to really hear what the teachers, what the staff like are saying that they need, and they're saying that they're experiencing. Like if the teachers continue to say, we need more mental health support, the answer cannot be just call this phone number and I hope it works out for you. Like it needs to be more than that. And so they got to figure out another way to like get creative, whether it's like Tarshi said, pulling in resources from the community or, other types of things. But I mean, no one has a grid for this. And so everyone is sort of functioning in this state of uncertainty. But I think, leaders can, right? If they're invested, they can, I think, be like, okay, I don't have the answer. So let's like, tell me what you think. What do you want? And how do we like work through this together? Because the expectation shouldn't be it's only leadership that's making those decisions. Schools are a community. And so I think really being able to pull on those strengths is going to be a good step moving forward.
Absolutely. And Daniel, what is your perspective on this? Because I know you are a school leader. So like, as you're thinking about, are you all back in person or virtual?
Yeah, we're back in person. Yeah.
Okay. And so what type of shifts did you have to make in terms of like programming or supports for your students and your staff?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, because we just went back. We transitioned back, and then we had to take 2-week timeout, and then we came back again. So we've done it twice now. And what we learned the second time was easier. The first time was really just that reacclimation to being in a building. And we take a lot of measures to make sure that our staff feels safe and our students feel safe. And we're a very small school, so we have more autonomy to do that. But just patience, the gift of patience. If there's ever a time to cut the bureaucratic red tape and let teachers have more space and more autonomy in what they want to do, how they want to deliver the curriculum, that would be my call to action. I understand district. I was a public school administrator. I understand district protocol, but you can always, if you have to demonstrate solidarity with teachers by giving them not just grace and not just patience, but actual autonomy, right? And the same thing with our students. I think with restorative justice model, as we know that behaviors are really manifestation of pain and trauma, this is again a time to not follow necessarily your predetermined scripted depth chart for response to behaviors, but really look at what's underneath it and try to figure out, well, this kid is really struggling, or this teacher seems to be really struggling. What can I do tangibly to support them?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think that the systematic approach that is that's necessary, but in the same time too, we have kids who are going to have different needs when you're coming back in. We have kids who have had loss in their family. We have kids who have experienced less loss. So I think that we have to look at each child as a whole, in a sense, and try to meet each child with what their needs are.
Right.
So I definitely think that there should be more services, either community resources or something more as far as groups, maybe some more groups in the schools. But I think that we need to look at what are the needs once the kids are there. Trying to do a survey perhaps of what is needed at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I didn't even think about the fact that there's so much grief and loss with our students, right?
Mhm.
And when they get back in the building and they see their friends or teachers, or whatever, we never know what will trigger them and trigger a behavioral response. So I agree. I can't remember who said it, talked about getting off script. I think it was Daniel, getting off script with how you handle things. Like, you really have to be open. And I feel like teachers are probably going to be doing more grouping and life skills teaching more than actually, you know what I mean? Like teaching curriculum. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that, but I think school leaders have to be on board with that and know that, like, okay, we're not going to be able to just dive right into the curriculum. We're going to have to make adjustments and ensure that students' needs are being met. I know myself, I'm a special education teacher, so my students have intellectual disabilities. And so and we've been out of school for a year. So as we're preparing the transition of going back into the building, I have to teach, certain life skills, self-care skills, just a lot of those things that were part of our classroom routine. And now they've been disrupted. So like part of it is just like, just the basics of like how we enter a classroom and how we sit and how we function, just things like that. Yeah. And I'm just kind of bracing myself for because I don't know what to expect. And that gives me a little bit of anxiety, So I appreciate this conversation because it helps us to know that like there are folks like you who can provide us with these resources and tips and strategies, but also allow people in the audience know that this is something that we have to definitely continue advocating for because this is the big deal. So just wanted to say that. Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, wanted to say thank you so much. Did anybody have any last closing thoughts or any last tips that you want to leave for the folks that are watching in the audience?
Take care of yourself.
Take
care of yourself first and foremost. Even as teachers, I know we feel responsible for our students and us mental health people for our clients, but you have to take care of yourself first and foremost. That is the absolute most important thing that I could put in all caps and bolds. Take care of yourself first and foremost.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Self-care will be key. And thank you. I appreciate this conversation. I mean, it's needed. I appreciate the school counselors. I wanted to be one, and that there isn't enough. And you guys are real heroes without capes. So I appreciate the teachers and everyone involved in taking care of our kids. So Dr. Trey said it, take care of yourself. Courtney.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.
Man, look at y'all. That was absolutely amazing. Thank you all so much for giving all of those insights. Deidre, Daniel, how do you guys feel about the panel and some of the things that were shared?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Daniel.
I thought the panel was great. I think it was, a really important reminder of the depth of trauma that we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And I keep saying like the next curve that we're going to have to flatten is the mental health curve in schools, because that is going to be unmanageable. And if we stick in that traditional educational defensive posturing where we're reactive and not proactive, you're going to be left with a lot of teachers who are leaving the profession, and you're going to be left with a lot of students who, students are very resilient. They can catch up academically. It's the emotional wellness that I think needs to trump any curricular agenda right now, bar none. And I think our panelists really hit on that.
Yeah. Deidre, what was your sentiment? Because I saw like some conversation, and I actually found it, very interesting that one of the things that unfortunately folks are going to have to be reminded of, and it doesn't seem to be at the front of mind, is that the amount of grief that our students are going to be dealing with, but we also didn't really touch on the grief that teachers are dealing with. I know I have personally lost a family member to COVID. And I have family members that are dealing with the long-term health concerns due to having contracted COVID. And it doesn't seem like that those things are at front of mind. What was your kind of thought on that piece?
No, I agree with that. I mean, I even thought about just the fact of like, as we're approaching March, you know, there's just the feeling of like, I just remember, you know, that Friday before we left, like, I just remember everybody rushing, scrambling, making packets, just like that anxiety of not really knowing what's happening. And so as March is approaching, March 13th, as it approaches, like, I do feel a little bit of anxiety about it. And that's just like, just a small way. But I mean, I feel like folks are going through a lot. And so if we're not addressing these needs, it's going to come out and show up in other ways. Right. So it's like schools really need to really just like make this should have been a priority in the summertime, for real. Like, this should have been something that schools should have been planning for, regardless of when we were reopening, because we know that, you know, some of our students have been going through a lot of things, some of our teachers, and so now what's happening is some schools are trying to plan for it now. And it's like, okay, well, you know, we're re-entering buildings, right? Some of us are already in buildings. So I'm just wondering, what is that summertime going to look like for school leaders when they're planning professional developments and how we're getting teachers right? Like, how are we going to integrate these things as a part of our school day, right? And I think this is just the perfect time where we were supposed to have been reimagining education. And these mental health supports to be able to go along with this new normal have to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to what Daniel was talking about when he said, you know, the curve we're really going to have to flatten right now is the mental health deficit curve, right? Like the taking care of young people as well as educators, mental health needs. One of the professionals on the panel was talking about how, and I know this as a person who lives with anxiety and depression, right? Like, when I'm like in the bout, my memory is off. My ability to pay attention is off. My irritability is off. There are behavioral manifestations from all of these things. And I guarantee you that we're going to start seeing another phenomenon as a result of this, which is we're going to start seeing more suspensions, more in-school suspensions, and those type of things. And people are not aware, but when a child is suspended, they say if a child has up to 3 to 5 days of suspension during the course of the school year, they are that much more likely to drop out, that much more likely to be disengaged from learning. And so there's going to be negative consequences on the behavioral side that won't be attributed to what they just went through. And should be some considerations for that. Daniel, as a principal, anything you want to kind of say to that point?
Yeah, I mean, just the restorative justice model has never been more important and critical as it is right now. You know, we love to have high accountability for students from a behavioral perspective, but very few times do we actually balance that with high support.
Right.
Accountability is great if it's paired congruently with support. So what are you doing to educate students about how their behavior, like what Debbie said about how do you feel in the body and how is that showing up in real life? My other concern is just that I think is something I really want to talk about for a second is just the privilege of those who can choose to walk away from a profession and not go back in a building versus those who can't.
Right.
And I think that's something that we really need to talk about and speak about because it's a fact. You know, people who are going to have to cash in their sick leave or walk away from their job if they don't go back to work despite having a pre-existing condition or having some valid concern of why they shouldn't go back. It's devastating.
Yeah, exactly. Man, I just want to say, Daniel, thank you so much for always being an advocate, an ally, just a pivotal member of this Teachers for Good Trouble family, and helping us to broaden the individuals that we're able to reach, the perspectives that we're able to learn from. You are, in the words of my good sister Deidre, a true asset. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me anytime.
Absolutely. Anything you want to say? What? We just clicked him out. Look. Oh, he's back. There we go. Hey. Anything you want to say before you tap out, brother?
I just want to thank you. I want everybody who's watching to sign the petition. And I want to encourage everybody to take their support of Teachers for Good Trouble and our Black educators and convert that with tangible action.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you guys.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We'll talk real soon.
Bye.
With to echo what Daniel just said, though, we do want to encourage everyone to please go to teachersforgoodtrouble.org, sign our petition, and please share it. This petition is a action step for us to end standardized testing during this pandemic. Many states are actually reapplying for the waivers to forego standardized testing this school year. And we now have a new presidential administration. We have a new Department of Education secretary. And I'm hoping that there will be a different outcome as far as that goes. So please, give us a follow on our Instagram, teachers at Teachers for Good Trouble. And continue to share. If you guys post any footage from this, like take a screenshot, take it, a little second of it or whatever, put it up out there on the chat for people to, on your, Instagram or what have you, hashtag Teachers for Good Trouble at us so we can reshare it. And let's just continue to get the word out. I believe we are who we need in order to get the word out and get the work done. Deidre, anything you wanted to say on anything before we move on to the next piece?
No, I'm excited for the next panel. I'm excited for it though.
All right, now go ahead. And I just want to just point out, the background, the mud cloth little situation you got back there. Come on, decor.
Hand painted it, just so y'all know. I hand painted it. Okay.
Oh, in real life?
Yeah, it was my quarantine project. Yeah.
Okay, black girl razzle dazzle back there. Yes, ma'am. All right, Queen. So I want to bring up the next, what we're going to get into on this next panel. My co-host is a dope educator coming from Massachusetts by the name of Rax. And Rax, man, this sister is just like one of the dopest individuals I've had the opportunity to meet. And I am just so happy to be able to share space with you. So welcome to the summit.
Thank you for that, my brother. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon as we think about what mental health looks like for educators. My name is Sumay Darival. My friends call me Rax. And I've been teaching high school chemistry for 10 years at a charter school in Massachusetts. And one of the newest things I'm most excited about in my role at that school is serving on the school's racial justice committee.
Oh,
yeah, there's some beautiful dope energy that we're working on, trying to figure out how to do things right by the students, and there's a lot of beautiful energy happening there right now. I'm excited to introduce our panelists though, so they can give us their insights and their ideas on what they're facing as they consider school reopening plans. So shall we go ahead and start introducing our panelists?
Absolutely. Go ahead and let's start getting to it. Rax, you got it.
Sarah, welcome on. So we got.
Hey.
What's going on?
All right. So we have Sarah tapping in. Sarah Bagwin. We have Ben Bruin. We have Janetta Ellison, Stephanie Edmonds, and Dr. Zachary Kirk. Welcome to the show. All right, Rax, you want to go ahead and just introduce some of our guests, and then we'll start tapping in on the topic questions.
Yes, sir. So we also have Mr. Ben. And Ben, is your last name pronounced Brian or Bruin?
Just O-O. I always tell my students like a broom. Ooh, Bruin.
Thank you, Ben. Bruin. Ben is a high school social studies teacher, AVID and credit recovery teacher at St. Helens High School in St. Helens, Oregon. Welcome on, Ben. We also have Janetta Ellison, who is an educator, change agent, and advocate for exceptional learners. She's currently a special education teacher based in Pasadena, California. I'd also like to welcome on Stephanie Edmonds, who is a social studies educator at a public school in the Bronx, and Dr. Zachary Kirk, who's former director of curriculum and instruction for Atlanta Public Schools / current partnership executive for a Fortune 500 company. Thank y'all so much for being able to join us.
Absolutely. So listen, this panel is really speaking to the overarching question of, is testing data worth the risk of us returning to buildings? And also wanted to have a comprehensive conversation just among educators to discuss how we feel about returning to buildings. And in full disclosure, like, we have a spectrum of voices and perspectives on this issue. We are not necessarily all going to agree on each other's perspectives, but what I want from this conversation is for us to show our teacher community, show leadership, show America, show our students what it looks like to not necessarily agree with each other, but still respect each other. And so with that, I just want to say thank you before we even get started to everybody for helping us to have this space to be able to do this work out in front of everyone. So thank you all for being here. Rax, you want to tap in on question number 1 for us?
All right, let's get into it. So what would make you feel safe returning to the building? Or if you're already there, like, what are things that are working for you that are helping you feel safe?
All right, I'll direct that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put out some names. Dr. Zach, do you mind tapping in on that? When do you think educators should feel safe going into the building?
So one thing, it's great to be here, and hello to everybody. And I see all these amazing educators out there. I have not seen anybody shout out Georgia or Atlanta, but if you are out there, I want to see you in those comment sections on YouTube, shouting out the ATL, and also probably calling out one of the worst governors in America, Brian Kemp. For us in Georgia, our teachers unfortunately returned back to school in many school systems in August at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to our teachers returning to school at the height of the pandemic, we never had a mask mandate in this state. It never happened. So COVID-19 never decreased. It never went away. We never curbed the spread. We never stopped the spread. And so our teachers have continuously been put in danger and put in harm's way throughout this whole entire experience. So for me in the state of Georgia, the time for our teachers to return never occurred. This has been an absolute nightmare scenario for educators at every level. We have educators being pitted against educator when all of the fault lies with the national and state response. We have teachers mad at principals and principals mad at superintendents and superintendents mad at board members. And again, none of those factors to me have been very fair. So to answer your question very clearly and succinctly, our teachers should not be returning to school until they are vaccinated, until we know that no teacher can contract the COVID-19 virus or spread that virus unknowingly to other people. And until that happens, our schools are not safe environments for teachers, in my opinion, despite what anyone says, because the amount of data and evidence out there requires a level of, by the CDC, a level of precautions being put in place. And I know that many of our school systems are ill prepared to put those precautions in place. Money has not flowed the way that it should flow in this state. I'm not certain about the rest of our panelists, but in Georgia, money was given to our state government through the various COVID-19 relief bills that were passed. We have people who have been unemployed who haven't gotten their unemployment checks. We have people that never got any stimulus money. And we have school systems that have not gotten their adequate funding from CARES Act. They can't do what they need to do because they don't have the funding. And we're too far down the road to continue on. That's my firm belief in that.
Thank you for that. Can I tap in Janetta? Then I'm going to kick it to Stephanie after Janetta.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So to go back to the question, what would make me feel safe going back into the classroom? I think just if we were able to implement what we ask our students to implement, to be safe, respectful, and responsible. And I think that in order for us to return back to the building, because school is open, right? We're all teaching virtually every day, Monday through Friday. So for me to feel safe going back into a building, I want to feel physically, mentally, and emotionally safe. And to be honest, I don't feel that right now during this pandemic. Respectful, I want them to respect our rights, providing us with the resources that we need. Like the previous panel, they stated that just dropping like PDs or here's a therapist here and there, that's not really respectful to my mental wellness. So until that is actually acknowledged and respected, I don't feel safe going back into the building. And then we go back to being responsible. A lot of schools are not in place, right? They're not set up to even be responsible to do the things that they said they're going to do, put in place for us to feel safe. So I'm just answering for our school districts to make sure that they're being safe, respectful, and responsible before we go back into the classroom. So I think we should model what we model for our children. And
Thank you.
That's not happening right now.
Just a piece that I almost forgot to mention. We have a Padlet that is available for educators and parents and stakeholders on the YouTube side that you guys can enter in some information for us that will guide how, as an organization, Teachers for Good Trouble will take action and make sure that we have all of your input. So please, anything that you guys want to put in there in terms of what will make you feel safe, what are things that we can be advocating for, drop that in the Padlet and be a part of the conversation as we continue so we can take that data with us to guide how we move. Ms. Stephanie, what will make you feel safe returning to the building? And are schools able to meet the CDC guidelines with respect to ventilation, social distancing, sanitation, soap, running water, warm water that you're willing to put your hands under the cold for at least 20 seconds, during winter, contact tracing, and the like?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that makes me feel safe right now is there's actually over 40% of our students and their teachers back in the classroom full time, 5 days right now. These are real people in real classrooms showing us how we can get back safely. Many of which they all have mitigations, but many of which are less than what the CDC is recommending. The CDC guidelines came out and they almost seem like they were made without taking into consideration a lot of this real-time data that we're seeing. In fact, according to them and their tiered system, 91% of the schools, I think it came down a little bit this week, but initially when they put it out, 91% of the schools across the country were in the red zone, meaning they shouldn't open up at all. Whereas, as I said, over 40% of schools right now are currently open. One of the main or big studies which they used, the CDC from Wisconsin, the CDC person who ran that, the doctor who ran that, came out saying that they didn't properly use the information from that study. And just in terms of like the question itself, I came out and I'm trying to really stick with the facts because I want teachers to feel good. I want to support teachers. We should feel respected. We should feel safe. But I think when it comes to making really big, important decisions that extend far beyond ourselves, we have to kind of put our feelings to the side. We have to look at the facts, and we really have to make sure that we're not allowing our own personal biases to get in the way. And there's a wealth of data out there. Like I said, 40% of schools are open. There's so many studies I could cite, but one that I would like to cite, which was like a systematic study that took into account over 3,000 different papers from over 146 different countries, that examined reopening. And what they found was that this was the space, one of the lowest risks of transmission. And actually in several places, it showed to be protective. Actually having students in school and teachers in school seemed to bring down the community transmission because they have more people in controlled spaces for a longer period of time rather than being at home and out in the community where the spread is shown to be more. So those are just a few of the things that it seems like the CDC guidelines are more being driven by special interests and rather than by the actual real-time data that we're getting from 40% of schools out there. Of course,
Okay.
yes, we need to have mitigations in place. But yeah, there just seems to be some misalignment.
I appreciate your input on that. I want to allow Sarah and Ben to speak. I do know that Dr. Zach has some feelings specifically about that Wisconsin study that I do want to give him the opportunity to respond to, because I believe anytime we start talking about research, we have to first look at who funded the research. We have to look at who it pertains to. We have to look at the nuances of what that environment is before we try to use research as our research or our data as a overarching guide to how we respond to things. So I want to tap in Ben to respond to the question as to what would make you feel safe to return to buildings.
Yeah, I'm out here in Oregon, and yeah, we have, pretty clear guidance from the state down with CDC. I would say just in general, they're pretty clear. I would just say I would feel safe if we could actually, follow them. So my school was built in the 50s, and already we were having huge facility issues of this circulation already. My classroom, as an example, would fluctuate between like 50 degrees and 85 degrees within a single day. And so I just know I have no windows or circulation anyway. Most of our classrooms are that way. So I just know a lot of our high school, just wouldn't be able to follow a lot of those. But the larger issue I just wanted to bring up is just the communication piece. I just know I would feel much safer if students and families, had a clear partnership in that process. And I think a lot of times staff and students and their families don't feel like they really have a voice in that process. And so we've tried to be really intentional around being transparent around what would it take and what would make them feel safe as well. And so I just wanted to highlight that human component to it outside of just data, and knowing when it comes down to it, just with looking at, local students with local decisions, and just that power isn't always there. So we're in a smaller district where we do have a union to lean on, and we do have, a voice, and we're glad to have that. We haven't been open since March physically, but we continue teaching. So school never closed, of course, we're still teaching. It's all happening anyway. But I just know for me, I've been on a committee since July looking at revising our blueprints and our plans over and over and over. And the main thing we just know is we would have to micromanage the heck out of everything. School would not be fun. And so I think that's the hardest thing I've noticed is that gap in communication where students and families, if they just think it's back to normal, it's not. You're having this buffer, and we're contact tracing where you go. We're doing cohorts of students around every spot in the building. And again, if we're not in society, we're not modeling that, then how do we expect students to? So there's just a lot of obstacles there that I think there might be a way for me to feel safe. I just don't see that being possible at this point in my school and in our state right now.
Thank you. Sarah, your thoughts on the matter?
Well, I actually return tomorrow. Our version of hybrid is starting March 1st. Teachers, pre-K through third teachers are being forced back in starting tomorrow. Tried to get out of it. I got denied. My son has asthma, so I personally did not want to go back into the building out of fear of bringing something home to him. That got denied, though, because the students have to come first, and I get that. But my son is not replaceable in my family. So that, to me, was my priority. As far as making me feel safe, in one of the parent meetings, one of the parents of one of my students asked if the kids are going to be behind plexiglass dividers, do they still have to wear their masks? That tells me they're not going to be as strict as I would want them to be. So again, my personal safety and my family's safety is on the line. And even though the school building is following guidelines, I cannot guarantee that families are. And because of that, I don't think it's safe to reopen buildings. I also know that I have a set of twins coming in that are going on planes and traveling because their mom is acting as if everything is normal. I have a student returning to the building that I live in Las Vegas. They go down to the Strip and do whatever, go to Circus where there's a whole game area. What guidelines are they following? And then they come into my classroom. So these are my concerns. So my administration has put guidelines in place. The CDC has put guidelines in place, but my families are not acting as if this is happening. And that's where my concerns lie.
Thank you. Dr. Zach, did you, I know that there were some things, especially in terms of the data and the study that was brought up in this conversation that you would like to address?
Yeah, this has been, just hearing, your story is the story that so many of our educators have faced, where they have family members and they have loved ones who are at grave risk, and they're still being forced to put their lives and the lives of their family members at jeopardy because of a study from rural Wisconsin. And what many people don't know is that there were actually 2 studies done. One of them is being heavily cited, heavily discussed, and that's where you had very strict measures in place that did result in low spread, but it included massive contact tracing. And that was what really gave the clear evidence that schools were safe to reopen. Now, when you think about that, I want you to think about where you're working and think to yourself, do we have contact tracing measures in place? In many places across this country, we don't have school systems giving with opportunities for teachers to get tested every single day, to then be able to know where they stand in terms of COVID-19 spread and transmission. In that exact same study from the CDC, there was another study that actually showed greater spread of COVID-19 in a school system among students to teachers. There were about 5,700 people affected or impacted by COVID-19 in the second study that's not being shared and not being given out. And so what it comes down to is exactly as I think Stephanie said, the special interest involved. A lot of people are talking about, unions and people being connected in, but think about all the states where unions aren't even allowed. In Georgia, we're not allowed to have unions. There's no one standing in the gap for teachers except organizations like this right here, Teachers for Good Trouble. We have splinter groups out there, but we don't have any kind of organized voice to fight on behalf of teachers. And we just had earlier this week, our president stand before the entire nation at a town hall and say definitively to the people in Wisconsin where the study took place that this was, if you can't put in the guidelines to safely reopen, you shouldn't reopen, and that none of this related to high school students. So if you are a high school teacher where we know the spread is significantly greater and you're at far greater risk of being impacted, those schools shouldn't be open at all.
So what do you have to say
that's
about
the mouth of Joe Biden? Joe Biden's mouth said that.
So what do you have to say about a place like, Wisconsin was one of the studies. I had also cited that systematic review of over 3,000 different studies from different countries around the world. So I think that we should kind of give that maybe a little bit more weight than one study in one place. And
so
that
I appreciate even that notion, bringing up, studies that were done in other countries. But I think what has to be recognized is, number one, that every country has not handled COVID-19 the same way. And moreover, even within the United States of America, how states have responded to COVID-19 has not been the same in every state. If you happen to live in a more conservative, right-leaning area, I am too in Atlanta, I am in Georgia, the response is completely different, right? So we have politicized, just allow me. We have politicized things such as wearing a mask. We have politicized how we respond to what is safe or what is deemed not safe, or what risk we're willing to take or not take. And that has a deep impact as to what it looks like in different areas. What COVID-19 positivity rates look like in a rural area as opposed to a more densely populated city area are different. And then you take whether or not it's a densely populated city area within a place that believes in science or doesn't. a place that believes in masks or doesn't. And so it is not a one size fits all type of condition in which we could have a blanketed policy response to if we're going to push that initiative. So discussing what numbers look like and what the reality is in a different country, as opposed to what it looks like in Atlanta, Georgia, or New York, USA, or LA, USA, or Detroit, USA, or Chicago, USA, or Houston, USA, has nothing to do with New Zealand, Denmark, France, Europe, anywhere else. We have to talk about what we are looking at. And I think to refocus ourselves on conditions that we are not ourselves experiencing is a falsity that we should not get ourselves marred in, because we'll end up making policy that does not reflect the needs of our people here.
I mean, I would respectfully have to disagree with the fact that we shouldn't take into consideration at all. I mean, especially when we're talking about multiple different countries. No, not everyone's going to look exactly the same, but they don't look the same as each other. So as we start to see divergent responses, but they're getting similar results, I do think that with caution and understanding that it's coming from a different place, we can begin to apply some of those things. But in like a place in the United States would be Florida. Florida has had their schools open. They've had pretty loose regulations around it. I do believe there is a mask mandate, or you have to mask to go into businesses and stuff. It's adhered to in different capacities, but they've had either the same or better outcomes than a place like New York and California, which have both had their schools much more closed down and much more restrictions.
Let me just simply that's a good point to bring in if the data is true. Now, I would have to go in from what I have heard from Florida. That hasn't been the case. But I also know that Florida has had the exact same trend as Georgia of having lots of parents purposely hold their COVID-19 child out of school and have their whole entire family plot to not test. We have whole entire Facebook groups in the state of Georgia, as well as in Florida, organized around trying to beat the system so schools don't close down. I know for a fact that we have whole communities of people who are having massive COVID-19 spread in their community, but because of the political issue, they're choosing not to go and get tested, not to become a case number, because they don't want their schools to close, because they're focused on the economic ramifications instead of the real life people ramifications. That's the reality of life in the South and the life of living in a conservative state that's run by Republicans who probably aren't as concerned about the life of teachers and children in the way they may be in New York, despite what you've had happen with, unfortunately, the nursing homes. So I think that Florida has done a horrible, horrible job, and they have some of the highest cases in the country. Ron DeSantis has been an absolute failure of leadership in this nation, as has Brian Kemp, as has Abbott in Texas. Those three governors are the three worst examples of leadership this nation has seen in this pandemic, next to
Cuomo?
Donald John Trump.
Cuomo sent everybody back to nursing homes, and DeSantis
just give us one moment, because I want to make sure that we do not divorce ourselves with the opportunity to hear more voices on the matter, because we do have other panelists here who have personal experiences that I believe should also be included in the conversation as well. So I do want to open it up for any of our other panelists that maybe have feelings upon what has been said. And I do appreciate that, there is data that we can kind of go back and forth about, but there are also human experiences that I think should many times supersede just the data. We lose sight of our humanity when we only start talking about the numbers, and we have to look at voices like, say, a Sarah, who is concerned specifically about her own children, and the reality of that. So if any of our other panelists would like to follow up on just anything said, I do want to open it up for you to be able to be heard. That'll look like she's finding that mute button. Go ahead, sister.
You can go ahead, Sarah.
No, like Shivy said, my concern is my family. My son was actually hospitalized in May because of an allergy attack. I hesitated to take him to the doctor because I was afraid he was going to end up in the hospital during the pandemic. And that's exactly what happened. He was on high flow oxygen for multiple days. He got a COVID test while we were there because I wanted to make sure that that's not what this was. It was allergies. He was COVID negative. We were quarantined for multiple days because we don't have rapid tests, or at least not at the time. We didn't have rapid tests here. So it was the two of us in a hospital room. I was lucky enough to be with him, but we were there. That was from allergies. This is a respiratory disease. I don't want to take that risk, nor should I have to. I should not have to choose between my job and my son's life. And that's the bottom line. I am vaccinated. I was lucky enough that Nevada has rolled out and has had teachers get vaccinated first, especially pre-K through third in Las Vegas, because we are getting pushed back in first. However, my children are not vaccinated because they're not old enough to be. And at the end of the day, I don't want to bring anything home. I don't care what any studies say. My children are my priority. And that's it. There's nothing anybody can do to make me feel safer about going into a building where I could risk bringing something home to him. And that's it.
I appreciate that. I know here in Georgia, teachers are not first in line to get vaccinated. We've been put, not first yet. Opening schools. I think I work in one of the last districts in the state that is still 100% virtual. Every other, I'm in Clayton County, last one, right? And what is unique about Clayton County? Predominantly black and brown leadership. And who are the people who are predominantly getting sick and dying from COVID, both in public and within schools? 75% of new cases and deaths involve a black educator, black students. It affects us in a different way than it does others. Janetta, did you have something you want to add, sis?
Well, I was going to speak just from the perspective as a lot of people who want us to go back in the building, they tend to think that teachers don't care about the children and that we're just thinking about self. So I want to speak about the children. Being a teacher of exceptional learners, my students have shared with me how they feel about going back into the building. Anxiety. They're very anxious about being like, they're afraid they're going to catch it. They're like, I'm afraid to go back. So attendance is not going to improve. It's not going to create a more emotionally safe place for them. Then I have students who actually struggle with like physical regulation, like wanting to touch people and like they might become aggressive sometimes, and that's something that's not going to really stand within the guidelines that they have set up for us to go by. Also, just keeping their mask on, that's something that a lot of students have a challenge with. So I just don't think it's something, we're not ready. The students aren't ready. The children aren't ready. And that's a voice that needs to be amplified. We have a lot of people or stakeholders that are speaking, but we need to listen to the children as well. The children have a voice, just like the high school student, Anaya, who did the poem. It didn't sound like she was like, let's go back to school, I'm ready. Yes, they miss their friends. Yes, they want to socialize. But when they think about the bigger picture of things, they know it's not safe. They're not ready to go back. And I think we really need to think about our children, the students who are going to be asked to sit in those seats, as well as the teachers who are going to stand in front of them on a daily basis. And then different communities are impacted differently. I'm in Pasadena, and then there's South Pasadena. South Pasadena is open, but South Pasadena don't look nothing like me or the children that I serve. So it's the equity issue that we have to be mindful of. Yes, they can afford, they have the money or the resources, really it's resources to make things be safe for the children to going back into the building. But a lot of schools that are going to be asked to go back, we don't have that. And we're a larger district, so it's going to take more money to make that happen. So it's not really realistic. So just bringing back to the children aren't ready to go back. It's not even about me not ready to go back. I'm kind of impartial. But when I think about all the bigger picture and everyone involved, it's just safer just to wait it out. Because I think we've been kind of hasty as a country, trying to open up, then close, then open up and close. And it's all been around the holidays. Let's be real. Super Bowl, let's be real. Things are just open because it's a capitalist mindset. But when we think about the real day-to-day, the real life stuff, we're not ready, and I'm not ready.
Thank you for offering that insight, Janetta. And I just wanted to like kind of tap back into what Sarah said. You know, you brought in your role as a mother, and I think sometimes there's like this contentious energy, right? Like there's a lot of people mad at teachers because we're just trying to protect our loved ones ourselves. It could be your child, it could be your spouse, it could be like an elderly loved one that you look out for. And I just wanted to just remind folks, it's not this that we need right now. It's not this like either or type of thing. It's an anti thing, because we teachers are also part of the community. We're also parents. We're also spouseless loved ones, granddaughters, whatever. So considering that, and like how do we build off of the energy that we heard our mental health professionals gave us earlier in the talk about what community resources need to be there to support educators. I think Jeanette kind of let us in a little bit with their insight, but I'm hoping to hear more from other panelists on the type of supports you think educators need from the community. And in addition to that, like what specific mental health supports do educators need? Like, what do you think from your end?
Yeah, I was just going to tap in that, you know, with mental health, there's so many supports that never existed, let alone mental health being way worse, like accentuated. And of course, those don't exist already. So, I mean, you know, at my school, I think just like many other schools, you have counselors who are already stretched just with their normal job description compared to having, you know, like what we have now. So like, even if, you know, like this, we don't even know the need. So I think even just beginning with those questions that other people talked about, you know, asking, you know, parents and families, what are the needs there? Asking staff, what are the needs there? Even if you're offering a mental health, you know, therapist or counselor, you know, what are their qualifications? How many of them have helped people process a pandemic to this level? And educators in our need to, in a sense, be on the front lines, educating where we're outpouring, and how do we receive and give day after day in a situation that is new to all of us. So I think just a lot of the supports that scare me is I know we need a lot, and a lot of those involve reimagining the money that most people don't want to give money toward. Like, you want this, go find it on your own, or maybe we'll reimburse you. So there's a whole structure of the funding and implementation of that. Who gets it? A lot of that gets into big debates around equity and equality. And that trickles down to oftentimes which voice is the loudest, or, you know, I'll just name it in terms of like being white and male, like my voice will be interpreted very differently than if I didn't have that position. And so my own intersectionality gives me the privilege and access to that support that even if it was there, I most likely would be able to tap into it sooner than someone who wasn't me. So those are just like the nature that comes to my mind when I think about particularly my students of color, other colleagues of color, you know, in and outside of the school, our society, you know, we can see the evidence. I know Dr. Zach brought it up too. There's this clear evidence that there's disproportionate impact, and there's not proportional support.
Thank you. Steph, what type of supports do you think teachers need when it comes to our mental wellness, our mental health, some of the anxiety that surely will come, even if you're for reopening school buildings? That doesn't mean that it comes without any anxiety. So what type of supports do you think educators could benefit from?
I think obviously having a positive culture in your school, among your district, one that shows respect and appreciation and trust that you are going to have agency within your classroom, is definitely needed. Now, when it comes to my school providing me mental health services, that's not really what I see my job as for. I mean, we already see the government, how they run schools. I don't really trust them to run that. I also think there's some weird conflicts of interest there, where I think that's kind of my own personal thing that I build my network as an adult to do. I have my family. I have my community groups that I'm a part of. I have my PLN that I build outside of this. So while I think that we should all have a workspace that we look forward to going to, we feel supported. We feel like there are people who we can reach out to and say, hey, you know, I'm going through a tough time. But I think And I do believe the CARES has allocated a certain portion of the money to go towards programs like this. And I think that any programs that we bring in that support the kids, likewise should support the teachers. In my school, I was a huge proponent. I was a part of the, we had a meditation program, and I was on the committee for that. And we have an SEL curriculum that I helped develop called the Question Project. So I'm a huge proponent of those things. All of our teachers are trained in those. All of them have access to the resources for them. But in terms of like mental health services, I don't feel comfortable with like my employer. I think that's something that I, as like a grown adult, should work my own networks to get. So again, I think that we should be supported, but it's a little bit different from like actual mental health services.
I think that's awesome.
Go ahead, Janetta. I'm sorry.
No, so I think that's awesome that you have that privilege of a network, but not all individuals have that privilege. So while I have a good network and I will have that privilege, but there are a lot of people that don't have that privilege. So I think it's key that we look at the bigger picture always when it comes to these type of conversations. It can't be an I thing. So I just wanted to say that. You can go ahead.
I think what we're talking about is access, not necessarily that the schools have counselors that they dictate for you or chose for you, but we're talking about things like our state health benefit plans and the fact that, like, say in the state of Georgia, I have access to 5 to 6 EAPs, which is basically my cost-free, no out-of-pocket access to a mental health counselor. That is not sufficient. One of the calls for Teachers Look at Trouble is that we have at least 24 EAP opportunities on our state health benefit plans for every state in the union, which essentially would allow educators to have a minimal of 2 counseling sessions per month without having to come out of pocket, and not just during the pandemic, but forevermore. That this is something that we should have the opportunity to have. And I agree with you, Stephanie, that educators deserve the autonomy to choose who their mental health provider would be. I don't have faith that a school system or my school building or my school district would be able to pick the right fit for me. Counseling is a very personal thing. I don't think that is necessarily a conversation, but I think it is a matter of making sure that we have free to no cost access to mental health services. And that's something that educators, I believe, across the country deserve. Sarah, any thoughts on the matter?
As someone who is in therapy and goes twice a month, I actually can't afford my full copay right now because my husband has been unemployed throughout this pandemic. Luckily, my therapist, I've been going to her long enough that she works with me. But again, that's a privilege that I have, and I recognize that. But free therapy right now, I mean, that's $30 extra a month that I could have. Well, it would actually be $60 if I was paying full, but that's $60. That's medicine. Because I'm also on meds because of the pandemic, and my anxiety has gone ridiculously high throughout this whole experience. And then it skyrocketed again when I was told that I had to return to the building, because this is scary and nobody can guarantee anything right now. So teacher mental health on a good day is bad. Put it in a pandemic setting, and we're all hanging on by a thread. So whatever resources we could get, and I'm not asking for my district to choose my person, I'm asking for my district to pay for me. Take that cost off of my plate. It's not like we get paid enough to afford all this stuff anyway.
That's super helpful insight, Sarah. So I think that, we have a space created for us to drop in additional insights and ideas. Just wanted to gently remind folks about that pilot. There's a lot of great ideas coming in so far, so please continue to chip into that. Thank you all so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Man, Rax, that was a very, very powerful panel. I appreciate the opportunity to have all of the different voices on it. Want to say thank you to you for agreeing to join in, all of the work that you've done behind the scenes to like help us to curate this opportunity for educators to get together and have this dialogue. Just all the work you do for Teachers for Good Trouble in the background. You are an absolute champion. And I might add, you have on a mighty spiffy hoodie there. Yes, got that Christian feel, Lord. Yes. But that was a very powerful conversation, and I think some of the things that were brought up absolutely deserve further dialogue, and I look forward to like us really kind of delving more into it. I mean, we had stuff we didn't even get to because of just how deep that got, and I'm just glad to see educators come together and have conversation, not necessarily agree with each other, but show that we can respectfully have these dialogue without losing sight of who we really are. I think anytime educators are like going against each other, we lost. So it was powerful for me. Any last takeaways that you have before we bring in the next panel?
Want to say thank you for helping to create and hold this space for us educators to come together. One of the ways that I'm kind of taking care of myself is through community. So with the Teachers for Good Trouble, there's so many offerings that our various members have, whether it be like self-care tips or like offering free hip hop Zoom classes just for educators to help self-care. So if you haven't already tapped into the Teachers for Good Trouble, I highly recommend you check out the website, stay connected, because we really do need to figure out how to come together more to like make progress. Light and love, y'all.
Love. So yes, you guys, please tap in on the Padlet right now. You see it up on the screen. Short URL @/IFUW4. You guys can again go to teachersforgoodtrouble.org. I encourage you to check out some of the opportunities we have for you guys to contribute. You can donate to our PayPal. You can donate to our Cash App, which is $TFGT.org, $TFGT.org. You can buy our merch, where the proceeds of the merch purchases go towards helping us fund this movement. We do things like compensate individuals like Jaime Avila, who is working behind the scenes to like help us make this entire thing go, making it look nice, creating this space that is up to par with what teachers deserve to have. Please sign our petition so that we can end standardized testing during this pandemic and forevermore. And without any further delay, I want to bring bring up our next host, Noemi Pavone, and my brother Amin Ra. What up, Queen?
Wow, that panel was fire. Wow, it's so amazing to see people just speak and walk in their truth. And so just thank you. I honor everyone that was on that panel. I'm super excited about this leadership one. Amazing to see.
Yes, I know. I am writing it up there. That man go. Yes. We have the principal and might I say author Amin Ra.
Hey, all right. Hey, man. Hey. It's so crazy to hear that, Hey, I had to throw a little something. I seen Daniel had a little something. I said, Daniel, go throw on the collar. Let me throw on something too, Daniel.
Hey, look, you see, I had to put one on too. I had to come out the hoodies and the t-shirts to get right. You know what I mean? Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. I had to bring a little razzle dazzle myself. I ain't mad at us.
Sometimes a razzle dazzle is the good trouble, right? That's the.
Hey. Yo, so listen, I want to get out of you guys' way. I know we ran a little bit over on our panel. I'm very much looking forward to hearing the questions that you guys have for school leaders. And I'm hoping that the panels, the first and second panels, will actually help to inform the conversation that we're going to have here, so that we're remembering all voices, especially that of educators and our students, man. So thank y'all very much for doing this. I'm going to get out y'all way. Have at it.
Hey, you ready to do this?
I'm ready. I'm ready. So why don't we start with introducing ourselves? My name is Noemi Pavone, everyone. I'm the founder and CEO of the Pavone Leadership Firm. We're a national leadership and educational coaching firm. We work with districts, principals, and teachers all across the country doing this incredible work. And I'm honored to be on the stage with the Principal Rob. Principal Rob, tell us a little bit about yourself.
No, thanks, Queen. For those who don't know me, I'm Amen Ra, after the Egyptian sun god. Many know me as Principal Ra. I'm the founding principal of University Pathways, and I'm also the founder of the Compton Legacy Foundation, in which we focus on just closing the gap in regards to financial literacy at the youth in Compton. And I'm also the CEO and president of Revolutionary Education, and the host of the Revolutionary Educator Conference. So we're excited.
And author, come on now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got author of a book, Revolutionary School Culture: The 6 Principles of Unlocking Your School's Hidden Treasure. Make sure you cop that up. It's available on Amazon, by the way.
That's right. So, we have to make sure that we're celebrating our people. So are you all ready? Drop in the chat real quick a fire if you are ready for this dynamic, historic panel that we're about to have. We're going to have school leaders, district leaders, board members, and some legends in education. So let's bring them out to the stage.
Let's get it.
Hey, Samantha. Jasmine. Hey, Nigina. Jason. Awesome. So I think we're also missing, I call her the Beyonce of education, Dr. Yvette Jackson. She should be coming on the stage shortly. But I'll start with introducing Samantha Pugh. Samantha, wave for everyone. Hey. So Samantha is up in New York, and she's a proud New Yorker with 21 years of experience in all grades. She is the chief academic officer at Merrick Academy, Queens, in Queens Public. It's a Queens Public charter school. So happy and blessed to have you on this panel. Nigina Livingston, we are so excited to have you. She's the founder of Urban Act Academy, one of Indianapolis's innovation schools, which serves over 350 students in K through 8th grade. And some of the work that she's done in the pandemic was featured on the news, and we're so excited to jump into that work as well. We have the Jason Estevez, who is a former educator, current attorney, and he currently serves as the board chair at an at-large representative on the Atlanta Public Schools Board of Education. So excited to have you on the panel as well, Jason. And we also have Jasmine Bowles is the youngest elected official in Clayton County. Wave for everyone. That's county in Georgia, where she is proud to serve her hometown on the Board of Education. She also serves as the Vice President of Strategy and Programs at School Board Partners. And I'm not sure if Yvette has made it to the stage just yet. It says she was here, but I'm going to briefly let you know a little bit about her so that when she enters, y'all already know who it is. I call her the Beyonce of education. She is a world-renowned author of Pedagogy of Confidence. She's an adjunct professor at Columbia University. She's a senior and scholar for the National Urban Alliance, and she is the go-to person for cognitive science, neuroscience, equity, mindfulness in schools. So honored that she is joining us on this panel today.
Dope. Well, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Super excited to dive into these critical conversations. You guys ready to get into some good trouble? All right, because that's what we're about here. We're about having critical conversations that lead to action. But that is where the good trouble exists, right? Is that action piece? Because a lot of people can talk about it, but I know the panelists here and we're actually being about it. So, Noemi, you want to dive into the first question?
Yeah, so let's dive in. First question, and this let's start with Nigina for this question. As school and district leaders, you work to address the mandates of the district and state, the demands of parents and students, and the concerns of teachers and staff. How are you prioritizing the needs of stakeholders when they are conflicting? And Jason, I'd also love for you to tap into this one as well.
Oh, that's a really good first question, Noemi. I would say that I'm ultimately guided by our school's mission, and that goes back to what's in the best interest of our students. And so, if I can figure out a way to educate kids in a safe way in alignment with our core values, then that's what I'm going to do. And I just think that like skillful leaders know how to influence their teams. They know how to inspire their teams around the work, and they listen. And so if I'm not going to just jump in and say, here's what we're going to do. I might say, here's what I think we should do. What do you think? And I think that collaboration that we have at our school is what helps to keep people invested and balance like the different perspectives. Like everyone knows that their voice is going to be heard and that they have some input on our final decision. But they also know that we're all believers in our mission and our goals are the same. And so we're not going to have like this discourse that's not productive. And so I think those are the things that are key.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of that, as Najina mentioned, is keeping students top of mind, keeping them first, making sure that all of the adults and the adult issues that are raised with a lens of putting children first. And there's no better example of having to navigate that as the pandemic. But for many of us, it's just reminding folks that we are here for students. And at the end of the day, we want to be as safe for students, safe for adults. But we have one mission, and that's to educate children. So for me, it's all about making sure that everyone knows that you're leading with children in mind and not with anything else.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask too, could you also talk a little bit more about, we hear a lot about students first, right? Like as a principal, we hear like this student-centered approach, student-centered. But in context, like what is that really, how do you get to that point? Because you can have somebody say student-centered all the time, but it's all about them as a leader, right? So how do you get to that point of building relational trust with the community, with stakeholders, like practical, like what are strategies or hands-on things that you have done that have cultivated relationships in your community with parents and with stakeholders that some people could take to their own schools or communities? And I can go to Jason or Nigina.
Or Jasmine, feel free to tap in as well.
I can say for our small school community, we give parents choice. So it wasn't a matter of just like, here's what we're going to do. Just as much as we involved our teachers and other stakeholders, we asked our parents, like, what would you feel most comfortable with? What works best for you and your family? And so when Marion County said, like, you guys can go back to school, we weren't just like, okay, everybody back in school. We tried to figure out what a hybrid version looked like, because we knew that some families were not safe with the idea of having their kids come back to school. And so we just really have like an approach that, I know it's cliche to say, it's just not one size fit all. And we are about, like, we want our kids to stay with us the whole tenure of their K-8 educational career. And so we don't want to lose them and like lose all the work that we put in every year. So we want to just make sure that we're accommodating our families to the best of our abilities.
Nice.
I think it's also important, COVID has been challenging for everyone. It's been traumatic for everyone. And it's important for there to be empathy on the part of district leaders, on the part of board members, and just trying our best to deal with all the emotions. I mean, the emotions from parents who want kids in buildings, the emotions of parents who are scared to death of having kids in the building, the teachers who want to be in schools, the teachers who don't want to be in schools because they fear for their health or their family's health. And as district leaders, we've had to be as empathetic as possible, while at the same time doing as much as we can in reality to bring students back to school, giving parents an option, and at the same time trying to do all that we can to mitigate risk for our teachers. So I think that steady hand is needed in a time when so much is erratic, whether it's the politics on the national level or just COVID in your local community. this past year has been up and down, up and down, up and down. And it's been important for school leaders to at least be that steady hand for the community.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Jasmine, could you talk a little bit about how your district and you as the board member, how are you prioritizing the needs of stakeholders in your district when you know that they are conflicting there as well?
Yeah, great question. You know, I serve on the school board in Clayton County, and we are, I guess, what some would call the last holdout here in Georgia as it goes to making sure that our scholars are learning safely from home. And one thing that is at the tip of my mind, you know, when you ask your question about how do we think about students first and the stakeholder question, one of the things that I think the last panel did a really great job of is talking about how there are different decisions for different communities and how that's okay. And I think that it's really important that we remember there's more than one way to survive and protect your family. And I think one of the first things we've got to be sure that we do is not survival shame the decisions that one district, community, or family makes versus another. And in Clayton County, one of the ways that I think we put children first, and this is just based on our demographics, is we recognize that our scholars cannot be successful in the schoolhouse without a robust group of adults. And when we say that scholars are going back to school, we know that that definitely includes the teachers who, you know, are super vulnerable. And as a former teacher, I think about teachers all day, every day. But that also includes the bus drivers who have got to bring our scholars to and from school. That includes the janitors who will have to make sure that their buildings are clean and clean in the ways that our scholars deserve right now, considering all the ways that they're at risk. And it includes the cafeteria workers who are going to feed them. And the list goes on and on and on. And so I respect, honor, and appreciate all of the trial and error that so many districts across the country are doing, because we learn a lot from every single time a district makes the decision to open and close. But those are just two things on my mind to your question about involving stakeholders and putting children first, is that hybrid solution and recognizing that families do deserve options. There's no one right way to make it through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks so much, Jasmine. So I want to tap into Samantha, because Samantha, you also have a very unique experience, not necessarily unique because there are other principals and school leaders who have gone through this, but it is a powerful experience. I want to lead with this. We got a comment in the chat that says, when I started teaching 11 years ago, there was not this level of risk involved in the profession. It seems like what is being asked of teachers continues to grow, but my pay stays the same. And in your school specifically, Samantha, you had some really traumatic things happen in your school community. Can you speak on that?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, shout out to Merrick Academy. Merrick strong, lion proud. We are a proud community, and we are a proud community. We've always been, but we are like exponentially proud now because of what we've been through with COVID. We've had to, figure it out just like everybody else with no blueprint. And at the same time, we lost a teacher early out in our journey. So we went remote in March, and we lost one of our teachers in April who was pregnant and was a pivotal part of our staff. So we've had to, what we needed to do was not necessarily prioritize the academics. We had to prioritize preserving our community and promoting connectedness. And because we focused on the people and the needs of the people, we were able to get straight to the academics. And we haven't seen much of a dip in our academics because we focused so much for several weeks on just unifying as a staff. So we were intentional about making sure we had to come together as a community really quickly. So I had to figure out how to help people manage just surviving COVID, but also surviving loss. And not just loss to my teachers, but loss to my children and my whole school community, and carry that. And also a personal loss to me. But we were able to get through, and we continue to get through because we stay very much focused on the people that we serve. And we serve our children, and then we serve each other. And because we go with that mantra and we stay focused on that, we could get through anything. So we brought in counselors. We made every single week I meet with families. Every day for 9 weeks, I met with my staff. I carved out 2 hours every day that I just had lunch with them via Zoom. I had lunch with the kids. I have breakfast and coffee, and with the principal, we really were focused on staying connected. And then because we did that, we were each other's crutches, as Nas would say. And we were each other's crutches, so we were able to hold it together. And that's why we have such a strong community now. So we're very proud of that, even though we lost the teacher. And we do it in her memory. We also remember that she was a really pivotal part of our community, and she wouldn't want us to fall. So we kept that as our phoenix out of all of this. And so America's here to stay, and we're excited about the work that we continue to do.
Yo, that's huge. Like, Samantha, what you talked about is prioritizing the village.
Yep.
Right? Like the village. Everybody hears all the time, it takes a village to raise and educate young people.
Yeah.
That means that your scenario focused on the village, which yielded you great energy for young people to learn, to collectively heal. Right?
Collectively heal, yes.
I think that's really what's all this is about. Whatever the decisions, I heard our board member talk about, like, not being so angry at people making their choice, but like, how do we collectively heal during this? And you described that so perfectly, for leaders to collectively and really be a humane oriented leader. Like, I think that's really what I got from you, which resonated, is being a humane oriented leader. Similar to you, we lost the staff, and I just want to commend you for that, because the village has to be a priority.
Absolutely. The village has to be the priority, because my work, I'm very clear about my work. My work is in service to the people. And because in being in service to the people, I'm in service to my mind, soul, and spirit. So when you start to tie your purpose in your life to that type of, you can only have people in the center of what you do. I mean, we get the scores, we do what we have to do, but we do it through heart. And when we keep our heart first, we can do anything. I mean, like, it's just amazing what my staff did. I was the first person, my staff found out that my teacher passed away on Facebook in the middle of the night. And I was the first person that they called. And I said to myself, like, what in the world would happen that they would think that the first person that they could call in the entire world is that they call their principal? And I took that really seriously. It hurt me, but I took that seriously, and it repurposed me to understand the gravity of our work and the gravity and the importance of what that means to be a community and staying focused on the community. So we still are going through it, right? Like, it's not easy, but we continue to get through, and I'm proud of that work.
Nice. Hey, Noemi, it's the pearls for me. It's the pearls and the you study the culture for me. That like, I am the culture. Like, that's the pearls, that combination. That is it for me. That is it. Sorry, Noemi, you can go to the next question, but I'm just looking at this queen right here and the pearls and the you study the culture and I am the culture. That's it for me. Go ahead, Noemi.
Like, some people gave up on the pearls and the Converses. Let me tell you something. I'm celebrating Blackness and my Black vice president every single opportunity that I could get in front of people. So that's the representation of the pearls and the hoodie. So thank you for that.
Yes, all day, queen.
Thank you so much for sharing I always tell you, even last time we had a talk on YouTube, just the way that you're able to show up so authentically. I know there was people commenting in the chat, sharing so much love with you, and I know that your story has given permission to so many other school leaders, district leaders, to be able to speak their truths during this time. So thank you so much for that. Want to shift gears here a little bit to the next question. And this is, I'm going to open it. I want to start with Dr. Yvette Jackson, and welcome. I call her, again, the Beyonce of education. We're going to bring her up on stage here. So the question is going to be, students are being given the choice to opt for in-person instruction. Should teachers also be given the option to choose between in-person and virtual learning? But before we dig into that, like yes or no question and why, Dr. Jackson, you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise in this trauma, cognitive, neuroscience, equity lane. And so would love to hear your thoughts on some of the considerations that we should be making when we're thinking about the answer to this question.
Wow, that is such a wide span that you just covered. But I just want, there are three things. First of all, trauma is real. We all know that. So the question that's going to come up more about should students take standardized achievement tests? I mean, it's like, are you kidding? Look at the data. If we believe that trauma is real, if we understand that cortisol that goes off in your body when you go through trauma affects your thinking, how could we ask kids to go into school to take tests? And then I would say, and test for what? Because you see, testing is supposed to be to show growth and connections to what kids are learning. How do you show growth when we've been in and out of schools like this? It's not even real in terms of what we're saying we're trying to do. If testing is supposed to also be diagnostic, what are we diagnosing for right now when we don't know whether we're going in and out to school? I mean, so we have to look at this as a time to really say, how do we massage the intelligence of our children given the trauma? And we know that this is not the only trauma. It's like Gloria Latson-Billings talks about the fact that there are 4 pandemics going on. There's an environmental, there is a monetary pandemic, right? How many parents are out of work and their kids see that they're not working well? And then there is the COVID, so it's the idea. And then, of course, then there's the racial injustice. That's the other pandemic. So we're talking about our kids who are going through all of this trauma, yes, and the teachers at the same time. So what I'm saying is, when you look at how we deal with this, how do we create, and I'm just following up on Principal Pope. Did I say your last name right? Or Pugh. Okay. Well, I wasn't here for the introductions, but I was spellbound by you. So that's why I got to follow up and say, this is about the community. But think about this, how important the students are in the community. And I don't mean their test scores, how students are born as healing agents as well. They really are. When you think about out of the mouth of babes and you listen to kids. So why am I saying this? The last thing I'm going to say is, when you think about what you can do for your community, virtual or in person, how do we engage students to take the mantle? How do we pass the baton? When it's report card time, why can't we do student-led parent conferences virtually? Because the parents why can't we have older students in the school tutoring younger students virtually? I mean, this is being done. We have this virtual world right now. And what I'm saying about that is, that's a different kind of assessment. It is assessing resilience. Our kids are resilient. It is assessing their flexibility, their ingenuity, all of these things that if you were to say, I want to start a gifted program, these kids are showing that they have gifts that are incredible. And we've got to look at that from both a cognitive level and a pedagogical level. And so I'm going to stop there and just say, this is the time where we have to give kids more of the leadership here.
Powerful.
Add on, yeah. Would anyone else like to add on?
No. Well, I say this. What you tied on, Dr. Jackson, is, not only analytical intelligence, but creative and practical.
Exactly.
And that has to be, if we want something different, we have to do something different.
Exactly.
Right? And it's really important for us to have these conversations in all aspects with board members. And I'm curious, in regards of the seat in which you're at, how do we have those conversations in knowing, understanding that, in our district, we're still asking for standardized tests in the same format of analytical intelligence, right? Math, reading, when we're talking about so much in regards of creative and practical intelligence, how do we start having those conversations with board members, or to start really having a value of the multiple intelligence that exists, especially highlighted in the 4 pandemics has been highlighted, right? Like there's a different type of brilliance that it's manifesting with young people, resolve and all these different things. What I just want to know, when you're seeing, how does that resonate with you?
Well, I would thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. I really appreciate your wisdom, and I agree 1,000%. And I think that one of the things that it's important to do is recognize that one of the greatest tragedies, in addition to the souls that we've lost throughout this pandemic, I think one of the greatest tragedies would be if school reopens the exact same in the exact same condition with absolutely no changes systemically. That would also be a tragedy. And so rethinking education from top to bottom is a definite falls within our locus of control as board members. I will also say that as board members, we are responsible for the budget, the superintendent, and the policies. And so while we're not involved in day-to-day operations, we can make sure that the conversations about budgeting include making sure that there are robust mental health practices and services available to our students and staff, right? When we talk about policies, we can be sure that our discipline policies are edited or amended in ways that welcome the whole child back to school and don't penalize some of the experiences that we know that they'll bring back. And so those are some of my initial thoughts, but standardized testing is another thing worth rethinking. And while that lives at the state level in many ways and is, preempted from local boards who cannot, just wonton jump in and out of the decision, it is imperative that the pressure from our entire community and from boards to the state include rethinking assessments. We know there's not one way to do anything well. And let's talk about portfolios. Let's talk about performance tasks. Let's talk about project-based learning. Let's talk about play-based learning. There's so many ways to quote unquote assess and get formative and evaluation information without being sure that we put folks' lives at risk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank
And
go ahead, Jason.
I wanted to quickly add, I think that we have to look at state government, as Jasmine mentioned, and look at the federal government, because whether it's been No Child Left Behind or Race to the Top, that's Democrat and Republican have focused on tests, have focused on the same thing.
Exactly.
And until we change the conversation at the national level, it's going to be hard for individual school districts or individual schools to make that impact, because at the end of the day, the state is looking at your performance, and they're not looking at performance in any other way other than how you're scoring on standardized tests. So I think that's incumbent on all of us to advocate not only at the local level, but state and national, regardless of the party, because I'll tell you right now, in this area, party does not matter.
Right.
We need to make sure that when people are talking about equity, when people are talking about equity in education, that they realize that standardized testing has driven public education in a way that has been detrimental to the profession of teaching, but also detrimental to our students, the students that we serve.
Man.
Absolutely. I just have to add in here the lexicon, the language. The state tests are not assessments. We stop saying that, because that sounds like we're really diagnosing and we're looking at growth individually, and we're not. They are tests that are showing where a school or a district is at. It absolutely is not assessing where kids' growth is in terms of individual skills and what they need to have supported. If it was, we would really be doing things differently. And to those powers that be that keep repeating tests that way, I would say this: so how's that working for you? Because no, it's not working for us that way. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to say, when you're testing in the way you are not really getting into intellectual development, you're not getting into creativity, and you're not looking at the growth of students. And that's what we're supposed to be looking at in terms of why we're in school. So we are powerful. I mean, I love that this is called Teachers for Good Trouble. There are probably 8 million teachers. It's like the size of the armed forces in the United States. We should be taking that reign, because the people who are making those decisions about the testing, many of them are not educators at all. At all. And so how do we educate them and say, you guys this is about learning. So I just put that out there because you are sitting here, you are talking, you are powerful. We've got to be the educators for them as well.
Yeah, no, you talk about that. And what's also important too, and I think Jason talked about it in regards of equity to education, it can't just be in isolation when it comes to young people, because then the heartbeat of a school is with the teachers. It's the village. Principal Buse said, right? So when you think about Teachers for Good Trouble, when you think about who's advocating the equity for teachers,
right?
So my question to the panel is, when we're talking about decisions that's being made, being forced back in the building in all kind of crazy conditions, right? Being a principal, having to leave the school, take temperature checks, be the quasi nurse, like taking care of the self, right? Students have had an opportunity to have a choice to either opt in or opt out in this hybrid model. Should teachers have that choice? So, should teachers have that choice? And we can go around off of just your thought on, should teachers have a choice in regards of their needs, in regards of their health, similar to our young people? Just a thought and question. What do you guys do? Maybe we can start with you, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is a tough one because I've seen how difficult it is for the school system to try to implement a system like that. We have in Atlanta Public Schools, we have a telework policy, we have telework option, and about half of the teachers who applied for telework got approved by a district, and about 10% of our workforce is teleworking right now. But it was not complete choice. I mean, like I said, half of the teachers were rejected, and I'm sure teachers who wanted to apply didn't apply because they felt like they didn't meet the requirements. There is a district in Georgia that did try to give teachers choice, particularly in the last semester, and it didn't work. And they changed that policy this semester because they had a hard time finding substitute teachers. They had a hard time filling classrooms with adults, and it was just a logistical nightmare. I think it's possible for very smaller school districts, for individual schools, to make that happen, but at the district level, I've seen superintendents and administration struggle to make that work in a district where you have thousands of teachers. So while I would love for teachers to have choice, just like we give students and parents that choice, operationally, it's incredibly difficult.
Gotcha. Yeah. Anyone else want to tap in on it?
And thank you for that comment. I think also it is operationally a nightmare, but I keep saying to myself, if teachers don't want to come back to work, then that should be the data that we should be using to make decisions on whether we should open our schools. So like, why, if we're finding out that our teachers are opting out of not, because a majority of my teachers want to come back. They want to come back. But I've always kept my finger on the pulse of what my teachers needed. So we've always been surveying them. What are some of the conditions that you would need? What are some of the childcare things that you are going? What could the school do to incentivize this? Like, staying in that constant conversation is important. But I think the social implications of this is that we're making decisions to keep our schools open for people that don't feel safe to come back. So if they don't, our teachers want to work. They don't want to be out. I think that policy almost like makes the assumption that they don't want it. They just make a decision to come back. My teachers want to be back to school. They want to give their kids normalcy. They want a sense of normalcy. And the ones that don't want to come back are the people who have real issues why they shouldn't come back, or they probably shouldn't be in my building anyway. So I mean, I continue, and I'm a small school, we continue to push back our opening date because I'm not doing it until I get at least 80% of my 90% of my teachers that are ready to come back. And that's a part of the checklist of choices that we have on whether or not we're going to reopen. And that's because we honor our entire community. And I'm hoping that will have some implications on policy outside of that.
Nice. Anyone else want to tap in?
The only thing I'll add is, I think there is some truth about the hybrid challenges, that Jason talked about when it's a portion of folks want to do this or a portion of folks want to do that, which is why we've taken, the all or nothing approach. And right now, all of our schools are closed. There is no in-person learning. And when I say schools are closed, scholars are still in class and still receiving instruction, and our teachers are still busting their butts. The degree to which, there's engagement, and we know trauma is real and it manifests itself in our virtual classrooms, just like it will in our in-person classrooms. But due to the operational nightmare that is saying, 50% of you can this, 50% of you can that. There is no thriving classroom without a thriving teacher. And that is just where there's, and it's no one's fault. Here's the thing. Yeah. Everyone goes to sleep and wakes up in the morning obsessing about how we can do better for our scholars, from the parents' room to the boardroom. And so if we could click our fingers and wave a magic wand, like, let's go back to normal, right? Tomorrow, immediately. So unfortunately, the pandemic is out of control. We can talk about all of those reasons and y'all's last president another time and how we got here, right? But right now, now that we are here, until there is either widespread vaccination or teachers are prioritized or both, it's unfortunately all of our scholars will continue to learn from home.
Yeah, and just noticing that, like, this choice, right? I think Principal Pugh talked about it too, is just because a teacher says, hey, I don't feel safe going back, doesn't mean that they're not busting their butt virtually and getting work done and yielding results and building relationships and making magic happen, right? And I think, like, those two things are not just like, it's not just like binary, like, oh, only those teachers who are doing good work want to come back and those who are not want to stay at home. Those are not the options. It's just reality talking about this fear of coming back to something that's unsafe. So, like, I want to know from our panel, and Noemi, you can jump in on this too, is like, what responsibility does districts, schools, principals have on, like, overcome? I heard about the survey that Samantha, that you have going on at your school to really be close to the village, but we have to overcome a lot of trauma that exists, right? Of anxiety. Like, how do we, and whose responsibility does that hold to? Is that the district schools? And if so, what are steps so we can get to overcoming that?
I'd actually love to for us to start with Nigina here, because I know that Nigina, your district in Indianapolis, the larger district, decided to keep students in school, and you kind of went against the grain here and made a decision for your schools to go virtual. And so could you speak to Principal Ra's question, and in that maybe also talk about some of the safety measures that you have had to take, or the responsibility that you've taken upon, or that the district has taken upon themselves to provide safety for educators and students?
Sure. So we want to kind of jump back to the other question you all asked about, like, teacher choice. Obviously, like, we cannot run the school without making sure that our teachers are, like, heard, valued, feel respected, and feel part of, like, have a collective voice. So I'm blessed to be in a situation where the majority of our teachers want to be in the school to serve kids, but we know that there are some that are immunocompromised. I have a teacher who is 73. We just have a lot of teachers who have unique circumstances. We had one that was pregnant. I didn't feel comfortable with her being in the building. So we were able to, like, make some adjustments. And so maybe, like, those teachers could do a heavier lift virtually, while the other student or teachers are in person could do the work. We have been able to provide additional compensation we were blessed to be able to give bonuses to teachers because we know the work has been different. They're not only like navigating in person, but then we flip to virtual. They have to navigate and shift their curriculum online, and that's just a lot. So we just want to make sure that we're being responsive and also like not letting society dictate what's going to be best for us. So as Noemi mentioned, like there was a situation where like Marion County is like, we're still in school, but the cases are rising, people with sniffles walking in my building, and it just did not feel safe. So we made the decision to go virtual ahead of what other schools in our area did. And I will never like regret that situation. I know that there were some parents who were, you know, struggling because we made that pivot. But at the same time, like I wanted to prioritize the health and safety of our whole community, and I just couldn't take that risk. On the flip side, in January, we also did not come back because we were looking at the rates in Marion County and just decided that it ultimately wasn't safe enough for our families to go back. But I will say that we have pushed for in-person because of the demographic that we serve. A lot of teachers are middle class, our students are not. So their home lives, you know, even though they have technology in some cases, they don't always have the home that's conducive to a positive learning environment. You know, I've been really working with the state to give us, to unrestrict some of our funds. Like, you know, if the school building doesn't have heat, we're allowed to close. If homes don't have heat, where do the kids go? So we just want to make sure that we can be adaptable and responsive to the needs of our community as best we can.
Wow.
And Gina, thank you so much. If there's no one else that wants to tap in, I want to go ahead and close us off with one final question here. Anyone else want to tap in on that? Okay, so here is the last question. We started today's summit with a panel on mental health. And we then went to a teacher panel who each spoke about their experiences during this time. And mental health seems to be a very real and reoccurring concern. So we'd love to hear from each person on this panel, from the work that you are doing in your position. How are you addressing the mental health of educators?
So we had to make some budgetary. I had to redirect a lot of professional development money that I would use for travel and such to hire people to come in to support our teachers. We had office hours for the counselors, drop-in days. We have wellness Wednesdays for our entire school community, so our school community could interact with trained staff and get support. We also put in place support for leaders. So I have my own personal person that I check in with, and my entire leadership team, because I'm like, sometimes people forget that we carrying the weight of everyone. And when that cape gets heavy, you know, when you're trying to be superwoman. So I made sure that I put money aside that I would have normally had to support the mental health with our teachers. We've also just done things like our people like to talk. They like to engage. We've hired yoga instructors, and we actually switched our health. We were in a time where we could switch our healthcare plans. So we looked at healthcare plans when we switched over to make sure that there were mental health. And then we also offered everyone on our staff money towards anything that they wanted to do towards self-care, and every single grade team something that they wanted to do towards self-care and something with the kids. So it was about reimagining how we would have used the money if the school building was open, and really putting our money where our mouth is when we talk about equity and support. And we've been also having really transparent conversations with our Black teachers, because I've been unapologetic with saying that they also are carrying an even heavier burden, because that has also showed up in our school community too. So we've been open to those type of conversations. So those are the decisions that we're making to make sure that we support our people. And it's never going to be enough. You know, like I wish that we could do more, but we're committed to making sure that we're mentally healthy so we could be there for our kids.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Principal Pugh. Let's go to Jasmine.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing from Principal Pugh because, you know, those most proximate to the problem are usually most proximate to the solutions. And as a board member, you know, when it comes to the policies, the finance and superintendent oversight, which is those are the hats and arms of levers that we're able to pull. I hope that it is principals in our community who actually have a long list similar to the one Principal Pugh mentioned. So we try to make sure that the budget is there, and that means being great fiscal stewards of the CARES Act funding and so much of the foundation and grant money that has become available. It also means trying to fill the gaps that we know cause the pain points. So a huge level of anxiety when school was closed last March was this resource and technology piece, right? So one of the first things we did is we made sure we created one-to-one devices and hotspots for every scholar in the district, which was a huge investment, but worth it, and hopefully helped assuage some of those anxieties. So, you know, beyond making sure that our principals have the resources they need to make the great decisions that Principal Pugh made, I also think it looks like being a strong proponent of all things mental health as a person as well. So beyond our school district, I think it's important to not ask of others things you wouldn't do. So talking about therapy and how healthy it is, and making sure that you try to reduce stigmas and taboos are also one of the things that I work hard to do. So
thanks so much, Jasmine. Nigina.
After this conference, I'm definitely going to be doing more. But some of the things that we've been doing is just making sure that we touch in. And so I'm making personal phone calls to teachers and checking in. If I notice that their body language is off, I'm checking in. I'm giving permission to give self-care days, mental health days. On days where on our calendar it says professional development. If we don't have a pressing need, we will say like that will be a day of self-care, and just naming that for staff. We also do happy hour. We know that when we went virtual, like we missed the connection. So we were doing karaoke. I had someone from a city I lived in Detroit come in and like teach hustle classes for people. So just to kind of balance out the work with some play, because we know that this is hard. There are lots of people who live alone. We have teachers who are out of town and their parents are not in the same city. So just not taking for granted the need for physical connection and trying to accommodate in other ways. So that's how we're trying to like work in supports. And I'm also going to just be like tapping into some wellness coaches. I heard in the previous section about like, don't just give people the EAP number. I think I'm going to just make a point to have counselors come in. I work with a therapist. We destigmatize mental health care. So I will bring in other therapists into the school to just advertise their services as a next step as a result of this conference today.
Wow, Nigina, thank you so much for sharing that and sharing so authentically as well. Jason.
Yeah, for us, my goal next year is to have mental health therapists in every single school site across the district. It's something that I think has been necessary even prior to the pandemic, but now it's I don't think we can even start the school year without addressing the mental health needs of our employees and our students. So for us, it's allocating the budget to ensure getting the grants, whatever it's going to take, to ensuring that we have mental health specialists in every school, and then not only doing it for this next year, but doing it for the future. Because I know many of the teachers and school leaders on here know that kids have needed this kind of assistance for years. I mean, this is not a new thing, but the pandemic has exacerbated all of these inequities that have existed. And I think for us, it's a great opportunity to actually address something like this that in years past, people would have questioned it. Why that would be prioritized, but it's
Jason, I heard you say students, and we know that is at the core. We also know that I would love to hear a little bit about adults, because that educators, I think a lot of teachers are here asking that question. So did you mean mental health specialists at every site to also serve teachers. Can you speak a little bit more on that?
No, I think I said it. I said the adults and the children in the building. Yeah, I thought I said it, and if I didn't say it, I meant it. it's literally for everyone in the building. You need that kind of support.
Thank you so much, Jason. And we'll end with Dr. Jackson. What are you thinking about?
I'm thinking about when I go in school districts, because I'm not in a school district. I'm a teacher's college, and I do professional development with teachers and principals in schools. And so one of the things that I know for sure around neuroscience is that when anybody is given the opportunity to focus in on things that they are personally interested in, their strengths, their endorphin level that makes them feel good, and the dopamine goes high. So what I will do is with principals say, listen, let's ask the teachers, if you could be teaching any specific topic right now that really addresses your personal interests, what would they be? Here's the caveat. And you can teach that if you're still connecting to the large concepts that people have to teach, the skills that you have to teach, but you can do it, whether it's photography, whether it's dance, and we can't even be in person, but we can be showing dance. I don't care what it is, but let's help teachers look at school as the space where, by affirming that they have strengths and interests, they could be presenting that to students as well, and still covering the skills that have to be gotten there, looking at the standards, which standards do I have to get to, but can I make it connected to things that I have a real personal interest in? Because I will tell you this also, when kids see that you love what you're talking about, whatever it is, they're right there with you, right? They jump in and they will read more about it. So I'm not saying don't have them read. They will read even more about it, because one of the things we know about kids from a cognitive basis is, we're always talking about how do we get into the heads of the kids. Kids want to know, how do we get into the heads of the teachers? They want to know that. Why? Because if I know things that you like, I'm going to be there for you. So one thing is about starting asking teachers, what makes you feel good? What are your interest strengths? Just show me how you'll still get to the skills. Show me that. When we have given teachers the permission to do that, I cannot tell you that the engagement has just skyrocketed. And that engagement means that there is internal kinds of things that are happening, like endorphins and dopamine and those kinds of neurotransmitters that are really helping. The other thing is, how do we amplify affirmations for teachers as an ongoing ritual? How do we affirm them? I mean, written affirmation, giving them things that make them feel good, and I'm not talking about that cost money, but even asking them, what's your love language? What would make you feel good? Is it by sending you a note? Is it by giving you a little extra time? Asking them what makes them feel better, and then giving teachers the opportunity for their own kind of enrichment in whatever way that means, and how they share that enrichment with their students. So I just want you to think outside the box and we know what it means when people are interested and can share what their strengths are, and the students will jump right there with you. And that's what I'm going to say.
Dropping gems. Just drop. You know what? You just an official gem dropper. If we had a Shivy up in here, he would have been, hitting all kind of boom, boom.
Hey, listen, let me.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait for it.
Give me one more. Give me one more, man. You know what, Dr. Jackson and everyone, I want to thank each and every one of you, because you guys brought so much insight. Shout out to Insightful Teachers, so much insight, so much perspective to what good trouble is, especially in a pandemic, especially with building, and shout outs to my brother Brandon filming, building a pipeline of power for young people when we have the great return. because make no doubt about it, eventually we will all have some form of being back on this great return. And I think it's important when we center the village, we center our teachers, we center the community. And I think Jasmine said it, the people closest to the community, closest to the people will have the solutions, right? If we center the community, we will have solutions around creative intelligence, around analytical, and around practical intelligence. So I want to thank each and every one of you. For our teachers that are still tuned in, you guys are yearning for this good trouble. Remember, change the world. Don't let the world change you. And through the village, there is power. And we all hold the power for good trouble. Thank you. Shivy, it's up to you.
Yeah, nah, thank y'all. Yo, Noemi, well, first off, let me just say thank you so much to all of the panelists, Dr. Jackson, Ms. Bowles, Principal Pugh, Ms. Livingston, Jason. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. But thank you all for like making yourselves available to this conversation. One of the reasons why, first, we see a lot of educators on Instagram, why we see educators coming together to do things like Teachers for Good Trouble, is because many of us do not feel that our voices are validated, that they are listened to, like we have a space to voice how we feel. We do not get the opportunity to be heard or seen or validated or included within conversations, especially at the top. There is a hierarchical structure of education, which has caused a lot of strife on us. And so for you all to be willing to come to the table that we have created says a lot about who you are as leaders and who you are as individuals who are at the forefront of our communities and helping us to do what we are doing in an effort to serve young people. So I just want to say thank you, and especially you know, for Jason and for Jasmine. These are two individuals that, you know, are leaders in the community that I work in and I serve in, but also that my sons receive services in. You know, I'm a resident of Atlanta. So the decisions that you all make have a direct impact on my work life, on my family life. And so my hope is that educators, school leaders, those who are training educators are very well informed as to how teachers are feeling right now. Because we need folks who are willing to be strong and advocate and push back against sometimes pressures from minority voices that may be very loud within our communities that do not necessarily think about the human factor that is going on here. But we educators have come together to make sure that our voices are heard and that we will be listened to. So thank you all for being here and doing this. You guys are winners.
You're winners!
Noemi and Ra, y'all ran like 100-yard touchdowns like the whole conversation, man. I am so honored to be in proximity with you all, man, to call you two friends. What you guys did here in navigating such a challenging conversation was just absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. Did you guys have any takeaways or anything that you feel you would like for folks to, I don't know, really process, to maybe take action on based on what you learned from this conversation?
I'll jump in. I would say that, you know, listening to Jasmine, listening to Jason and Principal Pugh and Nigina, is that the focus on the village and understanding too the well-being of teachers, the well-being of educators has to be prioritized, because what that feeling, that emotion, that connection is going to live and breathe with our young people. You're hearing the strategies off of how to prevent what we know is going to happen, right? How we're going to put systems to support. And it's like love. at the root of it, it's like, do I love you as a human being before any of this? Right? Like, if I love you as a human being before teacher, before principal, before, the bus driver, I love you as a human being first, and I value what you bring, then everything else will fall in place. And that's what resonated with me.
I love that. Noemi?
For me, it's very clear, right? Like, people first. This work is about serving people first. And yes, ultimately, our kids are at the center of our work. But if the adults are not okay, our kids cannot be okay. And I just, I love, and I'm honored and grateful that we had a panel of people, of leaders that are making the hard decisions, that are on the front lines of decision making, and for them to just show up so authentically and vulnerably and share some of even their learned lessons that they're taking with them for this work and the commitments that they're taking. That's not easy work. And I just honor all the leaders that showed up to the panel today. So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
100%. This was very good. This was very good. I think heart work conversation. I think especially for our school leaders who were tapped in on the convo, who have the purview of creating policy. I hope that moving forward, that what was learned from this conversation is evidenced in the policy that is made, is evidenced in the actual action, right? I think a lot of educators, residents within different cities, within different districts, kind of have a nervousness as to whether or not we're really listening to the needs of these people who are subject to the choices and decisions that they make. And that's just my hope. And I really appreciate voices like Jasmine Bowles. I work in the district that she is a representative in. And for me personally, I feel more confident as an educator. I feel more comfortable as an educator knowing that I have somebody willing to keep the safety of myself and my school community first, before pressure for economic relief on the backs of teachers, before pressure of a few families that may feel like they want to move one way instead of another. That takes courage to be that kind of voice. It takes courage to be one of the last districts in Metro Atlanta that's still virtual, especially when you're in an area that may feel otherwise, and in a state that may feel otherwise. That takes courage. And so, like, it just feels good to me to be a part of that same learning community with a woman like her. That said, man, do you guys have any last remarks or anything that you want to say before tapping out?
It's work time. We have legislative action to push around standardized testing, about getting mental health units and technology access to the communities that still do not have it. So it's just work time for all of us. Everyone in the chat, make sure you join the movement, join a committee, and let's do some work.
Yeah.
100%. Ryan, anything on your side?
This can't stop here. This needs to be shared. So if you're still here, you need to be sharing this with your colleagues. You need to be sharing this with everyone that you come across with, because this is the center in which the work is at. Education connects everything, right? And I think it's important for us to come together and share it. Share it on your social media, tweet it, text it, keep sharing the petition, keep being about this work, and keep getting in good trouble. All right, y'all.
Right, you got a project coming up real soon. A major collective of educators that people should be tapped in. You want to just go ahead and plug that right quick?
Yeah, I wasn't even listen. So for those who are out there, we having a Revolutionary Educator Conference that's happening March 6th and March 7th. And it's really in work with Collectively Healing to bring classrooms and districts together and no longer have things be divided, and really try to do this work around liberation pedagogy. So tap in with just the village. The work is the village, y'all. Like, if we continue with Teachers for Good Trouble, we continue with building our village. Like Fred Hampton said, like, the power is with the people. So When we collectively come together, there is nothing that we cannot overcome, and there's nothing that we cannot build. So come together with Teachers for Good Trouble, come together with your own village to create a bigger village so we can have a harvest that we can all create change and create liberation for our young people with. So yeah, again, the Revolutionary Educator Conference is March 6th and March 7th. My king, we're blessed with Chivy that's going to be part of it, and just some revolutionary educators across the nation. Black Girls Teach, Deidre Queen is going to drop some gems. So just thank you for sharing that, King. I appreciate it.
Thank you, King. Thank you. Deidre. Hey man, yo, that was this has been a phenomenal conversation. I mean, just the three panels, the in-betweens, the challenges. I mean, even the chat on the YouTube side from the folks viewing it. I mean, folks were, sharing how they felt about things, going back and forth about ideas on things. Like this has just been an absolutely phenomenal marketplace for ideas that we've all been able to kind of take part in. How are you feeling about what we've seen, and what do you feel are some of the major takeaways that we want folks to have?
Well, I'm just excited that we're having this dialogue, and it shows me that we need to continue making space for people to talk about these issues, right? But talk about them and then turn it into action. So I often think about what are those daily action steps going to be? So if we want to be able to advocate for no standardized testing, like what does that look like on Monday? Like what are the action steps that we are going to take? Because I think oftentimes a lot of us are waiting on other people to take that next step, and we have to just do it, right? And whether that is just scheduling a call with your principal or your school leader or someone in your district, getting clarity on things, pushing back, asking questions, taking your days if you need to, take your mental health days if you need to, if you have those, advocating, whatever it might be. Everybody has a role in this movement, and everybody at this point, like in this game, we need to kind of be knowing exactly what our role is, right? So we really need to be thinking about in addition to the policy changes that are going to have to take place, what are those day-to-day actions that folks are going to take to make all of this a reality so that we truly can reimagine education, and so that we can be the ones to make these changes that we're demanding happen. That's what I think about often.
100%. Want to remind folks in the audience and people who may be watching this after, please tap in on our Padlet where you guys can input some information on what you believe are resources we should be sharing, what you believe are policies we should be pushing for, what you believe our next action step should be. Also, I'm going to encourage everyone to please go to teachersforgoodtrouble.org where you can sign our petition, where we have resources for educators. We have lesson plans, which are free for you on Teachers Pay Teachers, in which we have some, maybe starter questions, things that you can help you to begin dialogue with your administration or with your school leaders, how you can enact some of this good trouble philosophy, mindset, and policy crafting within your own localities. Also, we had some individuals who went in, paid the extra $5 on their ticket in order to get a raffle pack from us, which is going to have a bunch of Teachers for Good Trouble merch, some other good little goodies in it for you guys to take home. And I want to go ahead and announce our raffle winner, who is Jezebel Cruz Gautier. All right, so Miss Jezebel Cruz Gautier, you are the winner of our Teachers for Good Trouble raffle. Thank you so much to everybody who registered, who paid for a ticket. We did the first one for free. We did the second one, really wanting to be able to compensate the folks who put in the hard work, because there's a lot of work that goes behind putting these things together. And we're able to do so. I want to give a big shout out to my brother Jaime Avila, who worked behind the scenes. He's popping the stuff on the screen. He's bringing people in and out. He's got the aesthetic going. Like, Jaime, you are the man. Jaime, you should bring yourself on stage real quick, man. I know you back there hiding behind the scenes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We're gonna need him for our conference, Black Girls Teach Conference next, okay?
Anytime. It's been a privilege. It really has, to come and work with such an amazing group of educators.
Word. And Jaime, being an educator himself, one of the things that I love is when we started doing the first conference or summit, if you will. I was talking with Jaime, and I just knew like he's the tech dude. Like he's gonna have you looking right. He's gonna get things looking good. And I'm like, Jaime, you think there's something you can do? He's like, well, I don't know. Maybe you want to reach to this person, that person. I'm like, bruh. Teachers can do anything. I believe that you can do it, and he's become like our resident professional on this. I have shared his contact with people outside of the education field to do virtual conferences and things like that. And you hear now, like Deidre saying, yo, we want to get you to come tap in with Black Girls Teach. So, man, just thank you for being an awesome human and a great resource for us, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I just want to say, over the last year, it's just I've had phenomenal growth by working with all of you. Like it's changed my trajectory as an educator. And so everything that I've given has come back at least tenfold. So I just want to thank all of you.
Oh, man. Jaime, you got any last takeaways you feel like folks should, that we would want people to take from these conversations and the work that we've been doing with Teachers for Good Trouble?
For me, it was a lot about, listening and, keeping an open mind to change. Like I said, I can reflect for myself. I've had phenomenal growth over the last year just by listening to all of you as amazing educators from across the country, because I'm over here on the West Coast, and just tapping in with all of you folks and just sitting back and just learning. Like it's just been amazing to hear all of these different voices from across the country, all for the same goal, which is for our students and also taking care of educators. And I just, like I said, just keep an open-minded and open heart. And that's my biggest takeaway from the last year.
100%. Thank you, brother. I want to invite everyone. We have our Teachers for Good Trouble whole group meetings every fourth Sunday on any given month. So it's going to be it's the last Sunday, excuse me. So our next meeting is next weekend, February 28th at 4 p.m. Eastern. So our meeting links are shared within our Slack group. You can join our group me, which is like on our website on Teachers for Good Trouble. You'll get more information on how to join the committee, etc. Tap in on our Slack, and then get access to the meeting. So we're always looking for new voices, new expertise to join in on our group. I know my Teacher Talk Live community's tapped in on it. I know the Black Girls Teach Empowerment Circle community is tapped in. And so we want, we try to be an open place for everyone to come together so that we can have the best, most informed conversations on things and make the best policy actions, the next step in advocacy actions, so that we can get like this stuff done, man. Like, I think we're past the time of talking and we're ready to actually see real change in education. Our jobs as educators truly is to not leave this thing as we got it, but make it better than it has ever been and give our students what they absolutely deserve. Deidre, any last thing that you want to say before we end the summit for the evening?
I'm just excited for, people to tap into the work that we're doing. So sign the petition, get the merch, come to the meeting, and just really be able to come be a part of this with us, because this is only the beginning. Like, we are just getting started. There's a lot of work that has to get done. And I'm just confident and excited to be around, like-minded folks who have a similar purpose, because a lot of times we're isolated in our own school. So just happy to be here and excited to get this work started.
All right. Hold up. There goes a king. Also, definitely before we go, I want to make sure that I give a huge shout out to our brother Rakim. Y'all know him as the insightful teacher who just tapped in. He, also working with Jaime behind the scenes, keeping us on track with time, keeping the YouTube comments, the right ones popping up on the screen, and you back here doing the razzle dazzle, bruh. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you have something you want to add to the convo before we get up out of here, brother?
Yeah, I just wanted to do a call to action for folks in the chat and to really answer the question, what are we gonna, each individual gonna do to push forward the movement, right? Because I think it's important, right? We say many hands, and I'm gonna put the question in the chat. We say many hands make light work, right? And we know yes, there are folks in the front, there are folks on the panel, but there's also a whole group of us behind the scenes on the YouTube, right? And I think, when John Lewis was talking about good trouble and necessary trouble, he wasn't just talking about himself, right? He was talking about the village and the community. So I would love for folks to just throw in the chat on YouTube, what are you going to do to push forward the movement in your life, in your schools, and your policy level, right? Most of the time we think about this work as external work, but some of it's internal work too, right? But can we get some actionable steps? I know I'm going to hold you accountable. This is what I do, right? Can we get some actionable steps of things that folks are going to do going forward? And I see them start coming in the chat.
100%. We getting a lot of flowers thrown at you, man. You got big love for you.
Right? So, love the action call. Point at the end, comment, transfer, and exchange on knowledge and action. I got it. I learn from each of you every single time you talk, meet, post. Okay. Attend a school board meeting. Ashe. I love it. Come on, keep on.
I absolutely love that. I think that's key, man. We do need to be at these school board meetings. I know it's tough. We go through a whole work day, but we need to be tapped in on when the policy making is happening and not allowing decisions to be made about us without us.
Right.
Keep showing up for my kids. Be the best me I can be. I also believe to get counseling. Come on. Shout out to counseling. Correct. John Lewis, yes. Good trouble looks like having that conversation around dismantling the systemic issues that's going on in society. Most of us, we don't speak up. We don't have the conversations. So therefore, how are we going to move this movement forward if you're not moving? Right? That's the conversations. That's what we need, right? So that's important. Keep the conversations coming, right? Someone said rethink assessments and grading, right? We're in a whole different point in our lives and in our collective futures, right? So it's going to tell us to reimagine, right? We know that reform is not working, or at least it's not going as possible. So how can we reimagine things? Tell my admin team to connect with restore more excellent so they can help educators with our mental health and make some actionable health self-care plans, right? Mental health is a basic right? Yep. Everyone should have these days off, right? We should not happen to be protesting for days, but if we have to, we will. Make sure I'm taking care of my mental health to be able to show up for kids and other educators, right? If you're not taking care of yourself, how are we going to take care of others, right? So definitely heavy on the mental health. Yes, policy change can only happen when I start attending every one of those meetings. And then when you get to those meetings, you need to make good trouble in those meetings. You need to keep on going and going and going. Yes, reimagining is key. Right? How are we going to keep on doing this, right? We can show up to the meetings, but we can be quiet in the meeting. Send a petition to school board members in our community. That's fire. Continue to support the amazing Kimberly Isaac for the local school board. First woman of color to be on the school board when she wins this. Excellent. Right? The people have the power. So how are we determining who goes for school board, who goes for these positions? Leaders have to be allies with their teachers and accomplices in the policy work. Ashe, ashe, ashe. Continue to prioritize my and my children's students' mental and emotional well-being, self-care for my kids, care for my students. Been calling schools in order to get intel on their work around anti-racism, anti-white supremacy, and connecting educators to said schools. Haven't been successful just yet, but I'm not stopping, right? This is the work, y'all. This is the work, right? This is the work. We have to keep going and going and going and going. John Lewis, his legacy is long and extending, right? But it didn't stop with him. It started with him, right? We are taking on a legacy. Reach out to a new teacher or two, a new principal, something of that nature. Keep the thing going. Continue to encourage all stakeholders, not just all stakeholders, to tune into these board meetings. Parents, teachers, community members really need to know what's happening. It costs nothing to tune in online. It costs nothing. Most of the advocacy we're talking about, it costs nothing to sign a petition, to go to your board meeting, to show up, sit at every table that is discussing policy. And if we don't sit at the table, we're going to make the table. We're going to bring the policies to the table. And if you are not given seat, bring a folding chair. Come on, raise your teacher voice. Come on. Continue to support district and school leaders and create spaces for them to have the support that they need. We know that support for district and school leaders, and we need that support. Connect with an ally, with my families when we approach the school board to demand change, right? We're stronger together. We're stronger together, and we need to keep it. I'm going to hit a couple of more of these. I'm with Abby, going to school board meetings to start the policy change, make a pact, and commitment. I am not talking. Many hands make like word. Keep spreading the word. Work on dismantling racist policies in my classroom, especially through my grade book, right? Ask your kids how they are. How are you? How are you, kid? How are you doing? Ask the parents you know how much that will transform the lives of our parents and students? Every class should start out with, how are you? Virtual or physical? And if you're an administrator, should be asking, how are you too? Share on social media. Social media is the civil rights tool of our time. In person and via email, any chance I get to speak up. How are we leveraging social media to get into good trouble? Continue to ask these tough questions and support TFGT financially and by attending the meetings. We know.
Oh, that's a good one.
We need funds, y'all. We need funds. This thing doesn't work by itself, and we know that like it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
It takes a village. 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 And listen to the kids. Listen to the teachers. Talk to my neighbors about policy. So with that, y'all, keep on dropping them in the chat. Keep on dropping in the chat. Keep on dropping in the chat, right? And I think I'm going to close out with this. Get into good trouble, necessary trouble, and help redeem the soul of America. That's what we are here today to do. And remember, all good trouble is necessary trouble. So thank y'all. I appreciate y'all. And I'm going to tap out.
Yo, thank y'all so much for just all of your presence, man. Like everybody coming together. Deidre, thank you so much for agreeing to co-host this with me, for sharing this space with me. I think we have learned, if we have not learned anything within the last year, is that Black women have always put us on the right side of history. So thank you. You know, we have had, you know, many heartfelt conversations about the presence of Black women educators, about how Black women should be heard, about how myself as a Black male educator has a certain privilege in this space. So for you to be here and share this space with me, to make sure that the Black woman educator's voice is heard, I'm just grateful for you. I'm grateful for you as a friend, as a person who keeps me focused on the right things, keeps me amplifying the right things. I'm just grateful for you, the work that you do, how important you are to this space, how valid you are, how credible you make us because of holding us accountable. So I just want you to know how much you are appreciated. And I absolutely love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Word up.
My heart.
little thug tear about to come down right quick.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you, you know, always just like being allowing me to be in this space, allowing me to share my perspective, pushing me to share it more, and get involved and things like that. Like, I'm excited. I can't wait for the next meeting. I will be there at the next meeting. Okay. I'll be there. Okay.
Yes.
There. And yeah, my voice is loud. So y'all, listen, I'm ready to do this. I stay ready. So I hope folks are ready to take this action and do the work that is required, because we got a lot of work to do. And it's going to require some of us to there might be a little bit of risk involved. Like, we have to use our voices. We have to amplify one another. Those folks that have privilege, I'm going to be holding you accountable and looking to you to be able to leverage that privilege. Okay. So remember, this is something that we're here because we're committed. We're doing the work, right? It doesn't just stop. It's not, we're not going to just get the good feeling of tonight and just and that's it. Monday, nothing. No.
Right.
We got to keep pushing.
100%. Thank you so much for being here, Deidre. Thank you for everybody for joining us. I invite you guys to tap in. I know this coming Tuesday, I will be going live on Teacher Talk Live at 8 p.m. Deidre, I know, goes live very often, so you guys make sure you're tapped in with Black Girls Teach.
On Wednesday with Principal Ra, he's going to be on Wednesday Instagram Live. I think 7:30.
Okay.
Yes.
And make sure you guys are tapped in with the Revolutionary Educator Conference, which is coming up March 6th and 7th. So we have that coming up. There are a lot of different projects coming out of this Teacher for Good Trouble community. Just make sure that you guys are tapped in. Cannot wait to see you all next Sunday when we have our next meeting and we continue a conversation about what we're going to be doing next. Well, thank you all for tapping in to the Teachers for Good Trouble Virtual Summit. We are here to make change. We are here to not leave it the same. Let's get into the good trouble, baby. We out of here.